Tsunade frowned as she gazed out of her office window at the village. She hadn't expected something like this, but she knew she should have. After all, since when was Naruto anything close to normal? Several hours at the hospital had proven her to be correct, the odd feedback from when she healed Temari had indeed been another faint chakra signature. What was extremely frustrating was that she had failed to cover contraception when she had the talk with Naruto. She'd just assumed the Kunoichi had known. Unfortunately, and completely obvious in hindsight, Temari had always been intended for a team with her brothers and no one had bothered to teach it to her. Politically, the news was great. The announcement of an heir to the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans had gone over with cheers and whistles at the council meeting and the Sunagaku representatives and the Wind and Fire daimyos were all pleased. On a personal level, Tsunade was convinced that this was a disaster. She mentally cursed at her earlier thoughts about blonde grandbabies, just her luck the Gaki would have knocked his wife up on their wedding night. She really wasn't worried about Temari, the girl was fairly level-headed and had taken the news more or less in stride after destroying part of a training ground with her fan. No, the real problem was Naruto. There was no way he was ready for something like this and add in the fact that a child would make him far more vulnerable as a target. Kami, what a mess. Unable to resist anymore, Tsunade slid her desk drawer open and pulled out her emergency sake and took a pull straight from the jar. She was concerned that Naruto had disappeared after the council meeting, but she had a fairly good idea where he was. Glancing at the Hokage monument, she saw a small dot sitting on Yondame's head. According to Kakashi, that was where Naruto always retreated when he needed time to think things over. Now that he knows about his heritage, maybe it's also his way of talking with his father, she mused. Hey Haim, Jiraiya said, hopping in through the window. You know you're pulling me away from valuable research, right? Pan it, you old pervert. She snapped testily. There are far more important things now than you peeping. Jiraiya dropped his facade, showing the serious shinobi hidden beneath his usual exterior. I've heard. He sighed. It's all over town already, and I'd bet anything Iwa and Kuma will know by the end of the day. This is not a good thing, Tsunade, this increases the danger he is in by a considerable amount. By himself or even just married, Naruto is really only threatened by Akatsuki. Add a child, even unborn, to the mix and I can see Kumo attempting to take the bloodline for themselves. Iwa will just want to crush it. Tsunade rubbed her temples as she replied. Yes, I'm aware of the problems. The question is, what do we do about it? We push him, Haim, we drive him to be as strong as he possibly can be, as fast as we possibly can. There are extreme risks to that. Tsunade said with a frown. Push him too hard, he breaks and we lose him. Standing up and heading out the window, Jiraiya paused, hand on the windowsill. Sometimes you just have to have a little faith, Haim. The Gaki is much stronger than most believe, all we have to do is help him along. He flashed her a pained smile. We owe him at least that much, don't you think? Tsunade watched Jiraiya leave silently. I guess the pervert's right. If anyone can handle this, it's Naruto. Still, I can't help but worry. Naruto sat on his father's head, idly spinning a Hiraishin kunai as he watched the sunset over the village. He was terribly confused and unbalanced, and he had hoped sitting on his father's head would help clear his head. Chuckling, he patted the stone with his free hand. Doesn't really work like that, does it, Tusan? It wasn't like he was expecting the stone head to talk back, but it really was his only connection with his father other than the fox, and frankly, he really preferred the monument. A rustle of cloth alerted him to company, and he instantly snapped alert when he didn't recognize the chakra. Whipping to his feet, he dropped into a guard stance as he carefully scanned his surroundings. Just within the tree line was a tall, bulky man in strange red armor that seemed to be emitting steam. Between the scratch in his Iwagakure aid and the ominous aura, Naruto knew why he was there. Oh shit, the last time I felt something like this, Gaara was trying to kill me. Don't tell me. He thought. Uzumaki Namikaze, Naruto. Son of Konoha no Kiroi Senko. I am Han. The man's voice was impossibly deep for someone his size. For the crimes of your clan, you shall die. The man charged forward with a punch that shattered the kunai Naruto tried to parry with. Staring briefly at the shattered kunai, Naruto realized that he was in serious trouble. The power it would take to simply break a Hiraishin kunai was considerable, and this man had just shattered one. Why is it always me? He thought bitterly as he hurriedly evaded the furious onslaught. Flipping back to gain some space, Naruto released his gravity seals and formed the sign for his favorite technique. Haju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Han paused as his target suddenly multiplied. The Namikaze brat's technique was impressive, but he simply began popping clones as they charged. He was forced to use his steam to shield himself when the brat somehow combined wind and fire to send a firestorm at him. Naruto observed with narrowed eyes as Han deflected his clones combining Gakakyu and Tatapa with what appeared to be steam. What the hell? Steam? Fortunately the steam provided him with an opportunity and the clones nearest to Han rapidly ran through Han's seals. Suiten Suru no Jutsu. The clones called out, condensing the steam into the water prison Zabuza had used against Kakashi and Wave. Seeing Han trapped, several clones charged and slammed into the man. Shit. Mud clone. Naruto swore when the trapped figure dissolved. Releasing the water prison, Naruto and his clones carefully searched their surroundings. A sudden burst of chakra was his only warning and he barely rolled out of the way as Han erupted from the ground beneath him. Han watched as Naruto flipped back to his feet from his evasive roll. Very impressive for one so young. He started calmly. I had hoped to do this quietly, but I see I have no choice. Naruto stared in horror as a bluish-white aura surrounded Han, one chakra tail swaying behind him. Fuck. He thought, he is a Jinchuriki. What one is he? He only knew Han could not be the one tail or the 9 tails, the honor or curse belonged to Gaara and himself. Holding his hand up, palm facing Han, Naruto called out. Stop, I do not wish to fight you brother. Han's deep voice had more than an undercurrent of rage as he replied. Brother. You are no brother of mine. How dare you call yourself such? I see that you are like me. I do not wish to fight my own kind. Naruto replied sadly. Jinchuriki. Han muttered in disbelief. So the great Namikaze couldn't resist making a Jinchuriki himself, could he? Preaching peace, then creating a weapon, what a hypocrite. Don't talk about my father like that. Naruto roared back. My father sealed the Kyuubi into me to save the village at the cost of his life. Please. Han sneered back. The Kyuubi could have been sealed some other way, just like the other Biju. The only reason they are ever sealed into humans is to create a weapon for the village. You're wrong. Naruto cried. Perhaps, Han conceded. But it won't be a concern for you after tonight. Even with his gravity seals off, Naruto was barely able to Kawarimi in time to avoid the bone-crushing kick Han slammed into him. Shit. He's a hell of a lot faster now, Naruto thought in a near panic. Deciding to stall, Naruto hid himself among his clones as he considered and discarded various attack plans. He ran out of time when Han slammed his fist into the ground and the shock wave dispelled his clones and threw him back through the air. Naruto's flight was stopped as he slammed into what appeared to be a wall of sand. Shaking his head to clear the ringing caused by that last attack, Naruto saw Gaara standing next to him, arms crossed in his brother-in-law's favorite pose. Naruto. The boy said calmly. Do you require assistance? Gaara. Naruto cried out happily. Thank Kami. Yes, he's a. Gaara nodded. Yes, that much is obvious. The beast is raging in my head over the power being used. Ah, Gaara, you aren't gonna go all insane on me are you? Naruto asked cautiously as Han paused to size up this new addition to the fight. Be at ease Naruto, I am here to help you. Gaara responded. Dropping back into a battle stance, Naruto looked relieved. That's great. Let's get him. He cried as he charged back into the fight. Han was forced back onto the defensive as Gaara and Naruto teamed up against him. His power was enough that Gaara couldn't trap him with his sand, but whenever he was forced to break out, he would find Naruto or a clone waiting with a. The boys almost had him when Naruto after quickly consulting with Gaara, decided to melt the sand into glass as Gaara trapped Han. Several Gakakyu, used by clones surrounding Han, managed to entrap the man in a glass prison. Standing next to Gaara, Naruto panted as he tried to regain his breath. There were times that he greatly envied Gaara's "I'll just stand here and kill you with sand" approach to battle. A sudden surge of chakra snapped his head back to the glass prison and he cursed when Han broke free. The sudden change in his opponent's appearance disturbed Naruto a great deal. Han was no longer a tall man in red armor. Instead, facing off against the boys was something else, something very frightening. A dark chakra cloak surrounded a quadrupedal figure. Chakra horns protruded from its head and 5 tails swung behind it, tearing the ground as they lashed. Gaara, Naruto said quietly, I think we're in trouble. Gaara simply nodded. The figure that had once been Han formed a ball and appeared to swallow it. Shit. Naruto screamed in terror. I've read about this, get out of the way. Shoving Gaara away from the attack, Naruto tried to dodge but was hit by the fringes of the attack, slamming him into a tree. Sliding down the trunk, Naruto stared in horror at the devastation caused by that single attack. A long trench started from where Han was standing and continued as far as Naruto could see through the forest away from the village. Kami, it's a good thing I didn't dodge towards the village, he thought in shock. Gaara appeared by his side, bringing his attention back to the fight. Gaara, we have to get him away from the village. Naruto said, determination blazing in his eyes. Gaara nodded his agreement and the boys took to the trees to lead their fellow Jinchuriki away from the village. In the village, alarms blared as shinobi rushed to get the civilians into shelters. The roof of the Hokage Tower was the nerve center of the village defense. Tsunade, Jiraiya and the highest-ranking officers were watching the battle using Sandium's old crystal ball. Damn it, Jiraiya. Tsunade snapped at her teammate. Why can't we go assist Naruto? It's a fight between Jinchuriki and one of them has already begun using Biju chakra. Any normal shinobi that tries to enter that fight will just be killed by the toxicity of that chakra. We already sent him the help we could give him when we sent Gaara. Right now, all we can do is protect the civilians and the village. Jiraiya didn't look pleased with his own words. He was worried that Tsunade might hit him and being dispelled would alert Tsunade that Jiraiya wasn't actually there. The orders to protect the village and stay out of the fight were ignored by a certain blonde Kunoichi. Gripping her fan tightly, Temari hurried to assist her brother and her husband. There was simply no way she was going to let her family fight without her. Naruto and Gaara stopped when they reached a clearing filled with sand. Looking around, Naruto shot Gaara an amused glance. Well, this seems familiar. Yes, quite an ironic place to fight. Gaara replied with the usual small twitch of his mouth, showing his own amusement. Yeah well, I'm just glad you're on my side this time. Naruto said, getting his game face back on as Han arrived at the far end of the clearing. Gaara nodded as the boys observed the further change in Han's appearance. Sometime during the chase, Han had fully manifested and facing the boys was the full form of the gobi. It resembled some sort of horse with an odd elongated head, horns randomly jutting from it. 5 tails swung wildly behind it and it seemed to glare with malevolence at Naruto. So, you can turn into a giant sand thing and he can turn into that horse thing. Am I the only Jinchuriki that can't or something? Naruto whined at Gaara. Naruto, Gaara said calmly. Whine later, fight now. Yeah, it just seems so unfair. Naruto complained. Can you go full form and stay sane? Yes, Shukaku is not released unless I use the false leap. Alright, I think you had better do that. I'll summon Gamabunta. Biting his thumb and channeling as much chakra as he could, Naruto slammed his hand down. No. The large plume of smoke cleared to reveal Naruto standing on Gamabunta's head. Jiraiya, why have you summoned me? The humongous road yelled. Boss. Naruto called to him, Iro-sennin didn't call you. I did. Rolling his eyes up, Bunta puffed his pipe. Naruto. Why have you summoned me? Pointing at the gobi, Naruto yelled impatiently. Mostly because that thing is trying to kill me. Gamabunta eyed the gobi and did a quick double take when Gaara in his full Shukaku form moved to his side. Gripping his blade, Gamabunta made to draw it and drive it through the sand but was stopped by Naruto. No boss, Gaara is with us this time. Is that so? You always find such interesting fights, Gaki. Gaara's voice boomed from his sand construct, Naruto, I will move to occupy him, you and your summon find an appropriate time to strike. Gotcha Gaara. Naruto called as he moved to engage the gobi. You got any ideas boss cause I've hit this guy with pretty much everything I've got so far. We could try a collaboration technique. Do you know any fires? Gamabunta asked as he dove forward attempting to strike with his tanto. Yeah Naruto yelled, I know Gakakyu. Will that work? Jumping back as Gaara physically grappled with the gobi, Gamabunta responded, that should be perfect. When I use my, you need to light the oil with your fire. Gaara, get clear. As Gaara backed off, Gamabunta spewed a stream of oil as Naruto created a fireball. Pain. Gakakyu no using the full seals and calling aloud Naruto to create a much larger fireball than usual. It ignited the oil stream creating a jet of flame that struck the gobi dead center. Naruto's shout of triumph was cut short when a tail came flying out of the smoke. Gamabunta managed to deflect the blow from Naruto but took the hit on his shoulder. Boss, you okay? Naruto yelled worriedly as Gaara moved back in to occupy the gobi. I'll be fine Gaki, Gamabunta boomed back, but I need to return and heal. Grabbing Naruto with his tongue, Gamabunta placed Naruto on the ground, then dispelled. Not one to say out of a fight, Naruto bounded up to stand on Gaara's Shukaku form. Gaara, you got any ideas, cause I can't seem to hurt this thing. Naruto called from his new perch. Gaara emerged from the sand next to Naruto. I can bring out Shukaku. He offered. Naruto stared at Gaara in disbelief, I would really prefer not to. We may not have much choice. A Biju may be the only option. Gaara, Shukaku possibly hates me even more than he hates you. Let's call that a last resort. I have an idea. Buy me some time. What do you plan to do? Gaara questioned, launching more sand shuriken at the gobi. I'm going to talk to Fox. Naruto responded as he sat down on the sand. Rushing through the sewer, Naruto quickly arrived at the Kyuubi's prison. Rattling the bars, Naruto yelled, Oi, Fox, wake up. Well hello warden. The fox sneered at him. I assume you're here for your rent. Look, I don't have time to fight with you. Naruto yelled back at the fox. I assume you know what's happening. The fox snorted. Of course I do, mortal. You got yourself into a fight with the gobi and now you need my help because you are a pathetic fool of a mortal. Gritting his teeth, Naruto banged his forehead on the bars. Yeah, that sounds about right, you egotistical theme of a fox. Now, can you help or are you really that worthless? He sneered back. Silence you fool. The fox roared back. It is not my doing that has landed us in this mess, but I suppose I cannot have that five-tailed freak claim victory over me. You may have your chakra, now leave. A wave of red chakra shoved Naruto back out of his mind. Opening his eyes, Naruto was seeing red, quite literally. Glancing behind him, he noticed a red chakra tail bubbling, and his hands appeared to be claws. Jumping off Gaara, Naruto began to claw and rip his way around the forelegs of the gobi in an almost berserker-like state. Unlike earlier wounds that healed instantly, the damage Naruto was inflicting with his claws stayed open and seemed to bleed chakra. Elated at finally being able to harm his foe, Naruto charged and slammed it into the leg in front of him. He was rewarded when the leg buckled and the gobi screamed in pain. Gaara, always a combat pragmatist, immediately enclosed the limb in sand and crushed it. A sadistic smile crossed his face as he and Naruto gained the upper hand in the fight. It seemed he could always find a good fight with Naruto around. Back in the village, a small crowd that had gathered around the viewing orb cheered as the boys began to take charge of the fight. Most of the Jonin watching the fight had been extremely worried when Naruto and Gaara couldn't seem to make damage stick to the Biju. They could feel the chakra flares from the fight clearly even at this distance, and most were amazed at the power being used. There had been concern when Naruto manifested a chakra tail. A fight involving a Biju certainly brought back memories of the Kyuubi attack even 13 years later. It was obvious from his actions that the boy was in control, which greatly reduced those fears. After all, it was highly unlikely Kyuubi knew how to use a. For the few Sunagaker Jonin watching, the fact that Gaara was fully manifested but working with an ally was very welcome news. Many in Sunagaker had been highly suspicious when Gaara returned from the failed invasion and began trying to work his way through the shinobi ranks. The drop in body count was welcome, but many were very cautious in believing Gaara had truly reformed. The current battle was proof that Gaara had indeed changed, and several prominent Sunagaker began to consider the currently empty Kazukiage position thoughtfully. Having finished one of the gobi's legs, Naruto and Gaara focused on the other foreleg. If they could cripple it, the fight was more or less done. Naruto, excited and running on the Kyuubi's bloodlust, mistakenly moved into a position where the gobi could swipe at him with its tails. He was saved from a great deal of pain when a sudden wind slammed into the attacking tail driving it back. Glancing over, Naruto saw Temari standing in a tree near the edge of the clearing, her fan held ready. His wife was obviously frightened. Two fully manifested Biju and another chakra-cloaked Jinchuriki were the stuff of nightmares for normal shinobi. A long-range fighter, Temari was obviously not going to get in close, but she was still here, fighting with her family. Back in Konoha, Tsunade was cursing the fool girl she was going to get herself killed and then the shit would well and truly hit the fan. News of her pregnancy had already spread if she died, a war with Sunagaker was all but unavoidable, and to that end, they had allies in Kumagaker and Iwagaker. On a personal level, Tsunade liked the girl and couldn't imagine what her death would do to Naruto. For the first time in many years, Tsunade found herself praying to whatever deities might be listening for the girl's safety. Please, just stay alive, all three of you. She pleaded in her mind. Confident Temari had his back, Naruto dived back into the fight. The gobi had wised up and wasn't allowing him time for more than quick hit and run slashes at its leg. Several times, Naruto had close calls, saved by timely attacks from his wife hidden back in the trees. Seeing Naruto stalemated, Gaara moved in on the gobi's opposite side, forcing the Biju to divide its attention. The gobi still had enough power to deflect Gaara's attacks, but it couldn't afford to ignore him, his sand was still very dangerous if unchecked. From her perch in the trees, Temari saw what her brother was doing and worried. It was true that Naruto needed a diversion to strike even with her covering him, but with Gaara on the other side, she was worried about possibly harming him. Her eyes widened and she dropped to the ground seeking cover when she saw the horse-looking thing create a giant ball of chakra and eat it. She didn't know what it was doing, but she didn't think it was a good thing. The release poured through Gaara's sand, leaving a smoking glass hole through the body of his Shukaku form. It was fortunate for Gaara that the sand absorbed the blow and sheltered him from the strike, but he was out of the fight until he could reform most of his sand torso. He was just glad the gobi hadn't aimed for the head, that attack would have killed him. Naruto growled as the gobi focused all its attention on him. He was forced to simply dodge and avoid a wide variety of strikes from its leg, its tails and its head. This did not allow for him to attack and he felt his frustration mounting rapidly. Inside the seal, Kyuubi was watching the events with a great deal of interest. He was stuck here until he could find some way around or through the Shinigami seal, and loath though he was to admit it, his current container was at least more interesting than the previous two. That was doing fairly well against the gobi, which was good. It would be unseemly for him, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, to be defeated by that five-tailed horse freak. As Naruto was forced to stay on the defensive, Kyuubi glared at the bars holding it. If only it was free to put that thing in its place. Gaara finally managed to fill the hole in his sand torso and rejoined the battle. The goby was not expecting him to recover that fast, and its mistake cost it the use of one of its tails. Gaara managed to crush it before the goby began to counter his attacks again. Naruto, freed up by Gaara rejoining the fight, was finally able to slam into the goby's other foreleg. Denied the use of its front legs, the goby crashed to the ground, tails flailing violently. As both Gaara and Naruto moved in for the kill, the goby proved it was still dangerous, with a concentrated chakra pulse that destroyed Gaara's sand body. Seeing his brother-in-law falling, Naruto dashed over and caught the red head before he hit the ground. Seeing that Gaara was fine, Naruto turned back to the goby with a savage growl as he attacked. Out of chakra, Gaara retreated to his sister's position in the trees. "Temari," he said wearily. "You shouldn't be here." Temari spared a glance from the battle with her brother. The only time she had even seen Gaara look this worn was after his fight with Naruto in the invasion. "Sorry little brother," she said, turning her attention back to the battle and getting ready to launch another attack. "There was no way I was going to let my boys fight something like this without me." Gaara stared at her, confused. He was happy that his sister had come to fight with him, but he was afraid for her safety. Shaking his head to clear his confusion, he sank down on the branch to meditate. Since he could not sleep without Shukaku devouring his mind and soul, he learned to meditate after his defeat by Naruto to rest his body and mind. What interested him now was that as a side effect, it allowed him to regain his chakra much faster than he would otherwise, much like the restorative powers of sleep for normal shinobi. Naruto was getting tired and even more frustrated. He could hit and hurt the goby, but he was nowhere near landing a finishing blow. The only true weak point he could see was possibly its face, but the head was still dangerous. Tch, it's like one of those final boss battles that Shikamaru likes to play. If only this thing had an arrow pointing at its weaknesses. To make matters worse, even with Kyuubi's chakra, he was getting tired. He couldn't keep this up for long. He also couldn't break off to rest because the goby would use the time to heal. For the first time in the battle, Naruto found himself pretty much out of moves, and that worried him considerably. Sensing its attacker weakening, the goby decided to strike the irritants in the trees with its tails. This turned out to be a fatal mistake. Seeing the tails lash towards his wife and brother-in-law, Naruto in his anger drew forth far more of the Kyuubi's chakra. A second tail formed behind the speeding figure as he intercepted the tail aimed at his family. "Don't you dare touch them," he roared as he tore the tail completely off the goby. Using the extra power, Naruto overcharged it with the Kyuubi's chakra and moving so fast he was a crimson blur, slammed it through the goby's chest. Screaming in pain, Han was forced out of his fully manifested form and driven to his knees. Clutching weakly at the ground, he began to laugh bitterly at his defeat by children. Standing over him, Naruto began to form to finish Han when his chakra cloak dropped. Without Kyuubi's chakra boosting him, Naruto fell straight onto his face in front of Han. As he dropped unconscious, seeing Temari's worried face, the last sound he heard was Sabaku Sozo. Followed by a sickening crunch. Hidden in the trees, Jiraiya allowed himself a small smile. For a moment he thought he would have to interfere, but the Gaki was improving very well. Glancing at the barely visible Hokage monument, he dipped his head. "You would be proud, Minato." Chapter 9. One long day. Naruto woke to both a migraine and the dripping of the pipes in his mindscape. Struggling to his feet, he rubbed his fingers on his temples to ease the pain. He noticed Kyuubi smirking at him from his cage, or at least he thought it was a smirk. There were an awful lot of teeth involved. "Hey Fox," he called out to his prisoner. "We won, right?" Kyuubi sneered, "If by win you mean, draw too much of my power, collapse like the pathetic meatbag you are, and then be saved by that fool Shukaku torments, then yes, you won." "Well, aren't you just as friendly and cheerful as ever?" Naruto remarked dryly, not really feeling like getting into a shouting match with the fox. "So what happened?" Kyuubi regarded his unwanted host critically. Apparently the annoying little was going to be polite today. Deciding that it cost him nothing and could potentially gain him advantages in the future, Kyuubi decided to be nice. "As I told you, flesh sack, you drew too much of my power and you collapsed. Your pathetic little body cannot handle my power at such a degree. This being polite thing isn't that bad," Kyuubi told himself, ignoring Naruto's eye twitch and clenched fists. "So, after your stupidity caused you to almost get me killed, you fainted like a little girl, and here you are." Ignoring the almost overwhelming urge to see how well the Kyuubi liked getting hit in the face with a, Naruto ground out through gritted teeth. "Fine, be that way, so why am I here?" The massive fox shrugged, "There could be many reasons." "Boy, if you don't know just say so." Naruto yelled back. Kyuubi ignored him and tucked his tails under his muzzle and pretended to sleep, snores and all. Naruto frowned and bit back a curse as he mentally visualized running Kyuubi through a meat grinder. Not very practical but oh so very satisfying. Feeling a mental tug, Naruto realized he was waking up. With one last glare at Kyuubi, Naruto vanished from his mindscape. Returning to the waking world, Naruto groaned when the first thing he saw was white. Fantastic, back in the hospital again he mentally sighed. The second thing he noticed was a hand gently running through his hair. Without moving his head, Naruto looked over to see Temari sitting in the chair next to his bed, absently stroking her hand through his hair as she stared off into the distance. Temari-chan. Temari whipped her hand back and blushed she hadn't noticed him waking up and was very embarrassed by her show of affection. Of course then she realized that this was her husband and they were alone. That was when she mentally berated herself for acting like a girl with a crush. Wait, is it even possible to have a crush on your own husband, she thought. Naruto was cautiously watching the emotions play across his wife's face with increasing concern. He wasn't sure exactly what was wrong with her, but he prayed she didn't end up blaming him for whatever it was. He really liked Temari, but her temper scared the crap out of him sometimes. Both teams were broken out of their thoughts when Tsunade entered the room. Naruto waved half-heartedly. Hey Aba-chan, how long have I been here? Tsunade glared at the boy before sighing and pinching the bridge of her nose. Naruto, if I had any idea of how much trouble you would cause me, you and Jiraiya would never have gotten me to return. Seeing the blank look on his face, she decided to explain. It's been 2 days since the 3-demon battle, as everyone has taken to calling that little fight of yours. Naruto growled hearing that name. It was somewhat apt, he admitted, considering who was involved, but the word demon held really unpleasant memories. That reminded him, Naba-chan, what happened to Gaara? Gaara is fine. Tsunade replied. He spent a night resting here in the hospital, then rejoined the Sunagakur delegation. He also said to tell you that the fight made him feel alive, whatever that means. She didn't fail to notice the way Temari and Naruto both flinched at the statement. Cocking her head, she asked, something I should know. Temari and Naruto exchanged guarded glances. No, not really Ba-chan. Naruto replied cheerfully. Eyeing the two suspiciously, Tsunade disregarded it. Whatever. You were very lucky he was here. The amount of Biju chakra the three of you pumped out would have probably killed a normal shinobi. Ah, Naruto replied, I was wondering why only Gaara and Temari-chan showed up. Reaching over he grabbed Temari's hand. Thanks for saving my butt Temari-chan. Temari blushed a bit between Gaara and her status, she wasn't used to such kindness. Hiding her embarrassment by lightly smacking Naruto's hand, she smiled at her husband. Of course. I wasn't going to let the two of you have all the fun. Despite direct orders to the contrary, Tsunade said with a mild glare at the girl. Temari straightened in her chair defensively. My brother and my husband were fighting. She said, glowering at Tsunade. I don't care what the orders were, I simply could not let them fight someone that dangerous on their own. My. Tsunade said mildly. And here I thought Sunagakur shinobi followed orders to the letter no matter what. Temari flushed as the barb hit home, but raised her chin frostily. That may be, Hokage Ayasama, she replied icily, but I happen to be a Konoha Kunoichi now, and I believe I've heard my husband say that those that abandon their comrades are trash. So, the girl is not only dutiful but strong-willed as well. Good, that will serve her well to marry a knucklehead there, Tsunade thought as she stared at the girl. I suppose that's true. Tsunade conceded. Changing the subject, she addressed Naruto, who was following the conversation with very wide eyes. So Gaki, you want to tell me why you didn't just use Hiraishin to escape when Han confronted you? I didn't think of it. Naruto said after mentally slapping himself. Naruto. Tsunade said testily as Temari palmed her face. You have a that lets you go pretty much wherever you have a seal, and you didn't think to use it in a fight with a. No. Naruto replied shakily. By the time I knew he was I was already kinda locked into the fight. Admirably resisting her urge to pound him till he stopped moving, Tsunade sighed. Naruto, there are times when it is wisest to simply retreat and deal with something or someone at a later date. Holding her hand up to forestall the comment he was about to make, Tsunade continued. Yes, I realize he attacked you, but if you had thought it through, you could have retreated, informed me, and there wouldn't have been a massive Biju-fueled clash right next to the village. Naruto lowered his gaze. I'm sorry, Ba-chan. I just got caught up in the fight, and when it got bad I couldn't think of anything but the fight. Tsunade could sympathize at least a little with him. She remembered her team's fight against Hanzo the Salamander and how fighting someone that dangerous caused tunnel vision. Still, she simply had to get Naruto to stop charging into things without thinking. She firmly believed that the boy in front of her would become Hokage Aya, and charging off half-cocked was a very bad thing for a Hokage Aya to do. Naruto, you are very strong, especially for your age and rank, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't think. Hi Ba-chan, I promise I'll do better. A despondent Naruto replied. Good, see that you do. Tsunade said as she reached forward to ruffle his hair. I'm just worried about you, Gaki. You know what sort of danger is out there for you and you've just added a significant weakness. She eyed Temari's stomach. Eyes wide, Naruto followed her gaze and blanched. Oh shit, he thought in a panic. That's right, those Akatsuki freaks are after me and now I have Temari and a baby on the way. Narrowing his eyes in determination, Naruto clenched his fists. Bachan, I have to get stronger. He said quietly, with steel in his tone. There is no way I can let those freaks get to my family. Tsunade nodded, I've taken care of part of that, but it's going to be up to you to do the rest. Can you handle it? Naruto met her gaze steadily, there's really no choice Bachan, I simply have to. Temari glanced between the two in confusion, obviously there was something she was missing, something important. Naruto, what are you two talking about? She asked in a stern tone. Naruto panicked. How do you tell the woman you married that because of said marriage multiple S-rank shinobi would be hunting them? He gazed at Tsunade imploringly, but she simply shook her head, it was his issue to deal with. Gee, thanks a ton Bachan. Scratching the back of his head nervously, Naruto chuckled. Well you see Temari-chan, there are these really strong guys hunting me because of furball here. He said, patting his stomach. Temari felt her eyes narrow, this seems like something I should know, being married to you and with whom my brother is. Naruto flinched at the ice in her tone. Omen Temari-chan, I just didn't want to worry you. Naruto, she said, glaring at her cringing husband. When we married, your problems became our problems. Taking a deep calming breath, Temari realized that this wasn't a good conversation to have in a public place like the hospital. She was now the matriarch of a Konoha clan, and with a dim bulb husband, she had to make sure private matters stayed that way. Now isn't the time for this, but believe me, this conversation isn't over husband. Temari pursed her lips thoughtfully, if they hunt you for your tenet did you think to warn my brother? Naruto flashed her a foxy grin, yeah, I did that when they brought you here to Konoha. Temari nodded, I see, and what exactly did you tell him? Everything I just told you Temari-chan, and that if he sees someone in a black cloak with red clouds he should kill first, kill again for good measure, and not bother asking questions later. Temari's face tightened in displeasure. After we finished our conversation, I believed I should speak with my brother as well. At the newly re-established Sunagakure embassy, Gaara felt a shiver travel down his spine. I wonder what that was he thought as he ignored the diplomat droning on in front of him. After being released from the hospital by Tsunade, Naruto and Temari headed home. The trip was very uncomfortable for Naruto as Temari spent most of the journey boring a hole through his head with her eyes. He'd offered her his arm as had become his custom lately and was saddened when she chose not to take it. I guess she's really mad. Upon entering the house, Temari turned on her husband in rage. Do you think I'm weak? No, you're really strong Temari-chan, Naruto replied defensively. Really, if you think I'm strong, why hide the fact that you have powerful enemies that might attack you at any time? The girl seethed. That's not Temari-chan. I didn't think of it that way. Dropping her chin slightly, Temari flashed him the smile she usually used in battle. No husband, she practically spat the last word. That's just it, you didn't think so, did you? I am not some pretty little flower cooped up where you can admire me. I am a Kunoichi, a Sunagakure wind mistress and a master of Tessenjutsu. I earned those titles the hard way. Naruto cut her off in the middle of her rant. No, that's not what happened I swear to you, I was going to tell you, but so much stuff has happened that I didn't really find the right time. Yes, I think you're beautiful and strong and awesome, and the thought of you being hurt because of me tears me up. He looked at her with tears in his eyes. With you here I'm happy, please don't hate me because I forgot to tell you something important. He finished in a whisper, eyes cast to the ground. His words tossed a bucket of ice water on the flames of her temper. Shit, I forgot that he is socially stunted, which was pretty stupid of me. Naruto, look at me, she commanded. Not for the first time, Temari noted that to truly see what Naruto felt, one needed to see his eyes. The depth of the pain and self-loathing in his eyes was painful, and she felt the rest of her anger fade away. Closing the distance between them, she lowered her face so that they were at eye level with each other. Naruto, she said softly. I was angry that you kept such an important thing from me, but I do not hate you, and I will not leave you. His eyes reflected a deep relief, and Temari leaned in and gave him a small peck on the lips. As I told you on our wedding night, for better or worse I will always be with you. Naruto cast his eyes to the ground. I'm really sorry Temari-chan. I just want you to be safe. Temari rolled her eyes in exasperation. Naruto, like I just said, I'm not some pretty little flower. I don't need protection. Naruto jerked his head up at her statement, heavily frowning. Reaching forward he placed his hands on her shoulders and pulled her eye to eye. Yes, you do. He stated flatly, overriding her protest. One of the men chasing me single-handedly wiped out the entire Uchiha clan in a span of hours. That sort of power is not something to just shrug off. I knew that you were strong, in some ways even stronger than me, but the group after me hunted creatures like what we fought a few days ago. Temari paled as the information soaked in. Sure, she was strong, damn near level, but that wasn't just another league, that was another damn dimension. She didn't intend to just roll over and let them take her brother and husband, but perhaps Naruto had a point. Seeing that Temari was beginning to accept his statement, Naruto let her go, fist clenched at his side. Temari-chan, he said quietly, are you aware of where I draw my strength? Temari raised an eyebrow, confused at the apparent sudden change of subject. Not really, no. I know it has something to do with precious people. You yelled something about that when you stabbed yourself that time Ino was trapped in your head. Once again Naruto meets Temari's eyes as if trying to drive his message straight through her eyes and into her brain. I believe that one can only be truly strong when one has something precious to protect. My greatest desire now is to protect you, Temari-chan, so please, let me protect you. Temari felt as if she was drowning in his eyes. She could see his honesty shining through everything and knew that he absolutely meant every word he had just said. The knowledge that the boy in front of her would quite literally die for her threw Temari for a loop. She'd grown up knowing that someday, sooner rather than later, her youngest brother would kill her. Now the same boy who had changed that future, had literally changed the course of her life, was showing her that he was willing to do anything to protect her. Something like this always seemed to happen just when she thought she had him all figured out. Reaching out, Temari pulled him into a fierce hug. I'm not promising that I won't fight, she whispered into his ear. But I guess I can let you protect me. Just remember, I will protect you too. Naruto nodded and whispered back, I never expected anything less, Temari-chan. The two teens stood there embracing each other for several minutes, savoring the quiet time spent together. Sadly, this moment of bonding was interrupted by Ino bounding through the door. Hey Naruto, Tsunade-sama sent me to get you. She shouted before she saw her fellow blonde standing near the door. Closing his eyes, Naruto sighed. Temari-chan, he whispered, would you think less of me if I told you that right now I'm thinking of locations to hide her body? Temari chuckled. No, you just let me know if you need help with that, she whispered back. Out loud she said, what do you want, flower girl? We're busy. Ino giggled at the two, they actually seemed to make a good couple, even if the very idea seemed absurd to the gossip queen. Like I said, Tsunade-sama sent me to get you. A council meeting has been called regarding that fight you had a few days ago. Naruto groaned and let go of Temari. Figures? He pouted. I just woke up and now I have to go play nice with the council. A quick glance at Temari in her ninja gear reminded him of something he'd almost forgotten. Temari-chan, go get dressed in formal wear. You're coming with. Temari cocked her head to the side, hand on her hip as she studied her husband, curious about his motives. A brief image from her wedding flashed into her head and she smiled when she realized that he wasn't commanding her to come, he was treating her as his equal in clan matters. Nodding her acceptance, she darted up the stairs to get ready. Naruto turned to Ino as he began to follow Temari upstairs. Ino-chan, we'll be there for a few minutes, make yourself at home or head back if you want. Ino shook her head. Tsunade-sama said to bring you, so I'm staying. She called up the stairs. Several minutes later, Naruto found Temari next to Ino. He was wearing the same kimono from his wedding, what he had taken to calling his clan head clothes. A big difference from the wedding was that rather than the ring boxes, the storage seal on his sleeve held his kodachi and several Hiraishin kunai. Being caught off guard with only a single kunai by hand had caused him to develop a slight paranoid streak. Meh, it's only paranoia if someone is not out to get you, and I know for a fact I have enemies. Catching sight of Temari coming down the stairs, he felt his jaw drop open at her appearance. She was wearing a short-sleeved black kimono with burnt orange trim and a matching obi. As she moved, Naruto noticed that the sides of the kimono were slit to above her knees to allow her more freedom of movement. She smiled at his reaction and did a small twirl to show him the white Uzumaki swirl emblazoned on her back. Ino stared back and forth between the two. Temari looked simply elegant but still fierce and even Naruto looked refined. She was amazed at how much they matched and she expected they would draw a lot of attention on the way to the council chamber. Naruto held his hand up. Okay, two things before we go, Temari-chan. Do you have a weapon or preferably weapons? In response, Temari pulled two small folding fans from under her obi. Seeing Naruto eye the fans unimpressed, Temari snapped one open and with a quick wave, sliced the top off a candle on the far side of the room. Smirking, she put the fans away as Naruto eyed them with a great deal more respect. I told you earlier, I am a master of Tessenjutsu Naruto. I can use pretty much any sort of fan as a weapon. Naruto nodded his acceptance. Last thing, Ino, why the hell does Bachan keep sending you to get us anyway? Ino's eyes widened. Oh, that's right, you didn't hear did you? Tsunade-sama accepted me as a second apprentice when I asked her after, well you know, our fight. Anyways, she told me that one of the first duties of an apprentice is to shut up and do as I'm told, so I end up relaying a lot of messages. Ino clasped her hands over her mouth before she could finish her sentence. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Nah, Ino-chan, I thought you had recovered from that whole merger thing. Ino sighed and knocked her head against the wall in defeat. Yeah, I mostly did, but my dad says that some of it is permanent. So if I get excited, I tend to say just like you. Naruto smirked, well, it could be worse you know. Ino glared at him as Temari chuckled in the background, yeah, easy enough for you to say. Sure, Naruto responded. You could have been infected with the flames of youth. Or possibly find everything to be troublesome. Ino shuddered as she pictured either scenario in her head. Temari for her part stopped chuckling and began straight up laughing at Ino. Flushing, Ino started to retort before she realized that she was outnumbered, a guest in their home and on a tight time frame. Oh, we gotta go. She yelled as she darted out the door. Naruto smirks after her, then bowed to his wife and offered her his arm. Temari smiled a bit as she linked arms with him and clasped his hand. The two shared a brief kiss before they fixed their game faces on for the trip across town. Ino randomly chatted about a very wide variety of things as the trio crossed the village to the Hokage Tower. She was confused that she was only receiving short polite responses from Naruto and Temari until her training as Yamanaka heir kicked in and she realized that she was dealing with the public faces of Clan Namikaze. Ino then dropped her normal attitude and drew on her father's training as heir of Clan Yamanaka. The rest of the trip passed in a companionable silence. Entering the council chamber, Naruto briefly paused when he saw the Uchihas. Sasuke was glaring at him, not a terrible shock, but still upsetting. What was far more surprising was Sakura, sitting behind her husband, she seemed to be hiding in her own kimono. She looked terrible, dark rings under her eyes, and the makeup she wore couldn't conceal her clear exhaustion. What the hell happened to her? Naruto murmured to Temari. Following her husband's gaze, Temari admitted to herself that he looked pretty bad. Hell, Temari actually felt sorry for the one she still considered a worthless fangirl one of Kunoichi. As they moved to take their seats at the table, Temari whispered back. I don't know, but she looks like she fell asleep in a scorpion's nest. Raising an eyebrow at the seemingly odd comment, Naruto couldn't stop a frown when he reached his assigned place at the council table. The table itself formed a horseshoe facing the high back chair the Hokage occupied. To the right of the Hokage's position was a small table where three weathered-looking shinobi sat, two men and a woman. One of the men and the woman seemed fairly normal, only the man's glasses really made him stand out. The third member, the other man, drew Naruto's interest as he unabashedly studied Naruto. The man looked like he had been through some sort of hell, wrapped up in bandages that covered one of his eyes, one of his arms held in a sling. Ignoring the man's gaze for now, Naruto considered his position at the table carefully. As a junior member of the council in rank and service time, Naruto sat at the very end of the U-shaped table, directly across from the Uchiha position on the other side. It had a small advantage that he was close to Tsunade's place, but the disadvantage was that he could feel Sasuke's gaze boring into him and given their positions at the table, he could do it for the entire meeting without bothering to turn his head. The second problem he had was that there was only one chair right at the table, a seat was provided for the heir, in this case Temari, but it was seated behind and to the right. This won't do at all, Naruto thought, I promised that she would be my equal. Most of the council and his friends watched amused as Naruto moved the heir's chair up next to his and pulled it back for Temari to sit. Temari felt the urge to blush as she gracefully took her seat. It was a thoughtful gesture on Naruto's part, but she silently wished that he hadn't drawn so much attention to her. Surreptitiously scanning the crowd as Naruto took his seat, Temari noticed that most of the assembled clan heads and heirs seemed more amused than anything else at her husband's actions. She reminded herself once again that Konoha was a very strange place. The underlying chatter and whispers died off when Tsunade entered wearing her formal Hokage robes and took her seat. Taking off her hat, she lay on the desk facing the council, signifying that this meeting was being brought to order. As you are all aware by now, she said, completely businesslike. 2 days ago, there was an attempt on the life of the head of Clan Namikaze. She paused as everyone turned to look at Naruto. As you can see, Naruto is fine, but the implications are very worrying. We have been expecting a hostile response from Iwagakure ever since Naruto's heritage became public knowledge, but an attack by was not something we planned for. Tsunade pulled out a dented and twisted 8, showing the scratched out Iwagakure insignia on it. Records from the Third Shinobi War would indicate that the Jinchuriki was a shinobi named Han and that he carried the gobi. We don't know much about him, but it seems highly unlikely that he would become a Nukenin after a lifetime of service to Iwagakure. We can't prove that he was ordered to kill Naruto, and as a Nukenin we have no legal reason to lay the blame on Iwagakure. A soft murmur of discontent sounded through the chamber as Tsunade finished speaking. The scratched out 8 was a polite legal fiction and a paper-thin cover, but one that was recognized by all 5 villages. Unless they wanted to deny themselves the chance to use such a tactic in the future, they would have no choice but to swallow it. Naruto moved to speak. He was very angry at the thought that he was forced to kill someone like himself, and the thought that the one responsible would get to walk away clean was infuriating. He stopped when Temari kicked his shin under the table. Turning a questioning glance at her, he read her glare as not here, not now. Grumpily he sulked back in his chair in compliance. He knew she had a point. If he wanted to be Hokage, he needed to start showing that he could control himself in situations like this, but he really didn't like it. Temari mentally gave thanks as she watched Naruto sink back into his chair. She knew him well enough to know what he was thinking, and a loud outburst at only his second council meeting would cause severe problems for them in the future. Since her husband seemed to live more or less totally in the present, someone had to have the long view. Tsunade raised her hand and the room quieted. For now, we will consider this as a possible first strike, and as such, I will be ordering a heightened state of alert after this meeting. Under Operation Plan Delta, we will begin pulling teams out of foreign missions and concentrating our forces. The shinobi in the reserves will begin weekly training until such time as we are certain the crisis has passed. Let me be clear on this, I do not want a war. Even before the Konoha crash, Iwagakure had an edge in numbers and were able to ally themselves with other hostile countries to bolster their strength. We need time to recover. As the assembled shinobi digested that, Ino blurted before her father could stop her. But in Hokage Ayasama, Naruto knows that his father used to crush Iwagakure in the last war. Can't he do that this time? Feeling the eyes of the room on him, Naruto spoke quietly. While I have learned to use Hiraishin, I do not yet have my father's skill with it. I could undoubtedly cause painful casualties to any attacker if I used it, but I wouldn't be able to simply crush them like my father did. Danzo spoke from his place at the elders' table. Is it possible for you to teach others to use them? If it was possible, he needed to have at least one of his agents trained, and then his tools would be far more effective. Naruto considered his response carefully. I'm afraid that I cannot for 2 reasons. First, it's a clan, much like the Yamanaka mind techniques or Nara's shadow manipulation. Second, at present it only works for me as my father's son. I finally managed to crack the 3 barrier seals on the main seal array, and frankly some of it still doesn't make much sense to me. One thing I did recognize was the seal confirming the identity of the user. I thought that if I took that out, I could possibly modify the seal to allow Temari-chan at least to use it. It's a good thing I used a bunch to test it. There is a reason I now have a new pond deep enough to dive in near the back of my estate. Several of those present winced at the thought of how powerful the explosion had to have been. Danzo for his part simply grunted. It would have been nice, but he had tried to crack the seals for years with no luck. He was frankly surprised that the Kyuubi brat had managed to get farther than his own efforts, but perhaps in time. Tsunade once again called the room to order. She'd informed the council of the attack and the response, and now all she wanted to do was go get some sake and maybe try to catch up on her paperwork. Very well, does anyone have any further business to discuss here today? She asked, voice implying that she truly hoped no one did. Her hopes were not to be as Sasuke stood stiffly. Hokage Ayasama, Clan Uchiha has a petition for the council's approval. Tsunade cursed in her mind. Of course he did. Motioning for him to proceed, Tsunade wondered exactly what the boy was up to. Honorable councilors, Sasuke addressed the council. I come to you today on a matter of grave importance. Over the years the Sharingan has been a source of strength for the village, and I am the last loyal member of my clan. I feel that we must revive the strength of my clan for the safety of the village in the future. As such, I propose that we pass a law today I have come to call the Clan Restoration Act. Under this law, if a blood limit clan is reduced to a single male heir, that heir may marry multiple wives to ensure the continuation of the bloodline. I do not do this solely for myself, of course. This law would apply to all blood limit clans and will ensure the village's strength in years to come. I second this motion. Danzo said from his place at the elders' table. I believe that we should do whatever it takes to strengthen the village. Mentally Danzo rubbed his hands in glee as he considered ways that he could use this law to strengthen his own forces. The motion has been seconded, we will now debate the merits. Tsunade said formally, hiding her distaste for the subject. She strongly suspected this was motivated by the fact that Naruto and Temari had already conceived an heir but couldn't actually say that without proof. The order will reverse seniority, which I consider fitting, as this law would also affect Clan Namikaze as well. Tsunade put her own gambit in play. She didn't see Naruto supporting this, and she was willing to bet that he could shut it down. Even with her legendary bad luck with gambling, she knew to never bet against the brat. Naruto glanced at Temari with a small smile as he stood and took a deep calming breath. He now had an idea of exactly why Sakura had looked so terrible earlier, and he resisted the urge to punch Sasuke in the face. It seemed that Temari nagging him into studying the Konoha charter and relevant clan laws was about to be useful despite his denial of the idea. Not that he was going to admit it anytime soon, but he suspected she was going to be just a bit smug about it later. Clan Namikaze would deny this motion. He began ignoring the rage that flashed across Sasuke's face. We feel that this law would violate the Konoha charter regulating clan practices. The charter states that any powers not specifically granted to the village by the charter itself are solely the discretion of the clans themselves. This law would be a wedge allowing future laws that further restrict clan rights, and I simply will not stand for it. Finishing his speech, Naruto sat down as most everyone stared at him in wonderment. Not bad for the dope, he thought with a huge mental smirk. He was startled when Temari slid her hand into his and squeezed gently. "That was very well done, Naruto," she whispered in his ear. Naruto whispered back, "Well, I had to come up with something other than my wife would kill me, didn't I?" He bit back a small yelp when Temari playfully kicked his ankle. After Naruto's speech, the other clan heads all voted to deny the motion as well. Some may have been motivated by a dislike for the law or past grudges against the Uchiha clan, but most agreed that any law chipping away at clan traditions was a bad thing. The only members that did vote for approval were the three elders, and Tsunade turned to the seething Sasuke. "My apologies to Uchiha-san, but the motion has been denied." Sasuke grunted a response, and Tsunade quickly dismissed the council to attend to business. As Naruto filed out, arms linked with Temari, he caught Sakura, giving him a thankful glance. This did not escape Temari's attention, but she simply ignored it for the time being. Her husband had done well and hadn't embarrassed her, so she wasn't going to let something like that ruin her mood. Arriving home, both teens agreed that they were tired and it was time to go to bed. Stopping Naruto outside the bedroom door, Temari darted inside as a confused Naruto waited. His confusion increased when she opened the door and handed him a pillow and a blanket. "Nah, Temari-chan, what's this?" he asked. Temari smirked at him as she laughed. "Naruto, when a husband screws up like you did earlier today, he sleeps on the couch until his wife says otherwise." Naruto stared at her, stunned. "What?" Temari laughed harder at his expression. "Sorry Naruto-kun, but that's the rule," she said, closing the door in his face. Naruto stared at the door for several minutes until he shook himself out of his stupor. He briefly thought about using one of the guest rooms but decided that he didn't want Temari angry at him. Sighing, he headed downstairs and made up the couch. As he laid down, he blurted, "Well, this sucks." Chapter 10. A meeting with the fox. The sound of a window opening woke Naruto from his place on the couch. He clearly looked over to see a giggling Jiraiya headed for the stairs with his notebook in hand. It took him a second or two to get the implications, and when he did, he dive-tackled Jiraiya as he started upstairs. "Hiro-sennin, what the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed at his sensei. Outing, Jiraiya put his notebook away. "I was just going to do some research," he said lecherously. "I have an idea for a new book, I call it Icha. Desert Rose." "Hiro-sennin," Naruto growled at him. "If you dare put me and Temari-chan in one of your books, I'll tell Ba-chan about how I got you to train me for the Chunin exams." Jiraiya paled at the threat, holding his hands up defensively. He stuttered. "Now, Gaki, no need to be so hostile. Today I come in peace." Naruto said, eyeing the man. It wasn't that he disliked the self-proclaimed super pervert, Jiraiya had actually taught him some cool stuff, but he'd noticed a certain trend. Whenever Jiraiya showed up, sooner or later, his life got harder. Extending a hand to help Jiraiya off the floor, Naruto asked the first question that came to his mind. "Can I ask what exactly brings you to this early, Hiro-sennin?" Seeing Jiraiya assume his usual perverted leer, Naruto cut him off. "No, what really brings you here?" Jiraiya instantly assumed a far more serious expression and posture. "Tsunade wants me to be there when you go to speak with the fox. If things go wrong, I can use this to stop you," he said, showing Naruto a complicated paper seal. Naruto examined the seal closely. "If I'm reading this thing right, you slap that tag on me, it will cut off my chakra and I'll drop right." Jiraiya flashed him a wide grin. "You're getting better with your—" "That's exactly what this does." Jiraiya frowned as he continued. "Tsunade wants us to do this away from the village just in case. I'm gonna take some precautions and set up a barrier seal. You go grab Inoichi and that fox of yours and meet me back where you trained for the exams." Naruto nodded, then froze. "Hiro-sennin, I think I should let Temari-chan know what's going on." He glared at Jiraiya when the eccentric sage made whipping noises at him. "Or, I could not tell her, and when she tracks me down and I'm in my head talking to the fox, you can deal with her." "Well, you should probably let your wife know where you're going," said Jiraiya as he bailed out the window. "Wuss," Naruto muttered under his breath as he climbed the stairs. Opening the door to their bedroom, Naruto found Temari sprawled across the top of the bed in her usual nightwear of a large baggy t-shirt and panties. Naruto paused to drink in the sight of his wife's long-toned legs. If there was one physical feature of hers he truly appreciated other than her eyes, it was those legs. He blushed as he remembered how smooth they'd been his wedding night had been, and it was with great effort he focused back on why he was here. Approaching the bed, Naruto gently shook her shoulder. "Temari-chan." He called softly. "Wake up, Temari-chan." He suppressed his desire to laugh when the girl jerked away and groggily turned to him. "Naruto. What's it?" She mumbled, still more than half asleep. Naruto sat and ran a hand through her unruly hair. "Iro-senin stopped by this morning. I guess today is the day I go talk to the fox with Reynard." Temari had been relaxing, enjoying the feel of his hand through her hair until she mentally processed the conversation. Her eyes snapped open and she jerked up into a sitting position on the bed, startling Naruto. Rolling her shoulders to work out the kinks, she yawned. "Alright, I'm awake. Give me 10 minutes and we can be on our way." As she slid off the bed and gathered her things for a shower, Naruto called out. "I was just coming to let you know. You don't have to come with." Poking her head back through the bathroom door, Temari glared at him. "Naruto, if you're going to do something as stupid and suicidal as taking other people into your head to talk to the Kyuubi no Kitsune, I'm not letting you out of my sight." "Ah, it's not that bad, Temari-chan. I get stuck talking to the fox from time to time anyway," Naruto replied, somewhat defensively. Calling out from the shower, Temari sounded annoyed. "Aka, you do remember what happened the last time someone was in your head, right? Just in case you forgot, let me remind you, you rammed your own damn Kodachi through your stomach." Naruto winced. He had a feeling that particular act would be used against him in the future with depressing frequency. Sighing as he got dressed for the day, he considered just taking off while she was in the shower but decided against it. His decision ultimately hinged on one crucial fact: he didn't want to sleep on the couch again. Now prepped and ready for the day, his stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten. Headed to make breakfast, he called towards the bathroom as he headed downstairs to the kitchen. Pulling her hair into her trademark style, Temari followed her nose to the kitchen a short time later to find Naruto putting the finishing touches on a pair of omelets. Seating herself at the table, she smiled as he theatrically slid the plate in front of her. Naruto smells really good, Naruto," she said happily as she prepared to dig in. She was a bit irritated that Naruto was a better cook than she was, but her annoyance faded away as she savored her omelet. "Still, I really need to learn how to cook," she thought to herself. "I'd like to be able to surprise him with something good one of these days." Finishing up, the teens checked their gear and headed out the door and exited the estate. Exchanging glances, the two quickly took to the rooftops as they headed to the Yamanaka flower shop. It felt odd to the two that they weren't linking arms, but it would have made roof running difficult and they were wearing their shinobi gear anyway. Dropping to the street, Naruto was about to enter the shop when he noticed Inoichi walking around the side of the building. "Hey, Inoichi-san." The boy called politely. "It's time." Nodding at the boy, Inoichi signaled for him to wait as he turned around and headed back around the building. Bored, Naruto amused himself by practicing levitating a kunai with chakra over his palm. He was having some difficulty as he was supposed to use regular kunai, not the much heavier tri-bladed ones for this control exercise. So, focused on trying to hold it steady, he didn't notice as Inoichi and Reynard walked up behind him until Reynard spoke. "Good morning, Naruto-sama." The large gray and red fox said, perhaps a bit too loudly. Cursing, Naruto barely got his hand out from under the blade as his attention was pulled from the exercise. "Damn it, Reynard, you did that on purpose," the boy said, pointing accusingly at the fox. The fox bowed. "My apologies, Lord Regent, I was merely trying to get your attention." Naruto glared, just knowing the fox was mocking him. Maybe having him spend most of 2 weeks with the Yamanakas was a bad idea, Naruto thought, considering the new attitude Reynard had. It was subtle, but the fox seemed to be enjoying annoying him. Making a mental note to find some way to seek revenge, Naruto pushed the matter out of his mind for the moment. "Inoichi-san, Reynard." He nodded at each in turn. Bachan decided she wanted Iro-senin nearby in case of any complications. He is currently setting up a barrier seal where we are to perform the mind walk. Seeing the look of confusion on Inoichi's face, Temari decided to clear things up for the man. Bachan is what Naruto calls Tsunade-sama and Iro-senin is his nickname for Jiraiya-sama. Inoichi's eyes widened in both shock and amusement as he studied the boy in front of him. He had to admit the boy's name for Jiraiya was both amusing and accurate, but calling Tsunade Bachan. He'd only known one person with that sort of audacity, and he briefly superimposed Kushina's image over Naruto's in his mind. He may look like his father, Inoichi thought in amusement, but he definitely inherited Kushina's flippant attitude. Inoichi noticed that both teens and the fox were staring at him, and he realized he must have gotten lost in his thoughts. "Alright, Naruto-san, I assume you know where we need to go." Getting a nod, Inoichi motioned for him to lead on. As the mixed party left, Inoichi couldn't help but wonder what would have happened if Naruto hadn't married Temari. It was a shame, the kid probably would have been good for his little princess. He mentally filed that thought away for future consideration. When the group arrived at their destination, Naruto couldn't help but groan. He'd forgotten exactly why Iro-sennin liked this particular spot. Apparently Jiraiya had gotten bored after he prepped in the middle of the field because sure enough, he was sitting in the bushes overlooking the waterfall giggling away as he peeped on the women below. Temari knew that Naruto and Jiraiya were Iro-sennin, but she had assumed it was because of the books the older man wrote. Watching him in action, she now fully understood exactly why her husband called him that to the exclusion of everything else. Growling low in her throat, she pulled her fan off her back and fully opened it. Amitachi no Jutsu. She called as she swung her fan, creating a visible funnel of wind around Jiraiya as her attacker picked him up and tossed him off the cliff. Naruto laughed hysterically at the irony of Jiraiya being thrown off this particular cliff as Temari closed her fan with a victorious smirk. Noting her questioning look, Naruto managed to quiet down, though the occasional chuckle still escaped him. Walking over, he pulled the surprised girl into a fierce hug as he spun her around. "Have I told you lately how awesome you are, Temari-chan?" Temari blushed at the compliment and the public display of affection and demanded to be put down. At least the aptly named Iro-sennin wasn't here to see it, she thought as she sent unamused glances at the smirking Inoichi and Reynard. Well, Reynard wasn't really smirking, being a fox and all, but having spent several weeks surrounded by foxes, she'd learned to read kitsune body language and he was definitely amused. She was silently vowing retribution when a battered hand appeared at the edge of the cliff. Looking like he'd lost a fight with Tora the demon cat, Jiraiya pulled himself over the edge of the cliff and flopped to the ground with a groan. Seeing Naruto laughing at him, Jiraiya pouted. "You think that's funny, Gaki?" Naruto walked over to the prone form of his sensei. "No, Iro-sennin," he said quietly, so only Jiraiya could hear him. "I'm pretty sure it's karma." "It worked, didn't it?" Jiraiya told the boy. "Oh, I never said it didn't, Iro-sennin, but the idea that the wife of the kid you tossed off the cliff ended up throwing you off the same cliff was funny as hell," Naruto replied with an easy grin. Jiraiya chuckled and held a hand up for his apprentice to help him to his feet. "I suppose when you put it like that, it is kinda funny." Back on his feet, he scanned the area. "I see we have everyone we need," he paused, warily eyeing Temari. "And an extra. Gaki, I thought you were just going to tell her you were leaving." She insisted she was coming along, something about me being suicidal and stupid and she wasn't letting me out of her sight. "I'm not sure really, I was sort of distracted at the time." "Oh?" Jiraiya said amused as he watched Temari give Naruto a look that spelled trouble. "How were you distracted?" Naruto flushed, images of Temari in her sleepwear flashing through his head. "Nothing," he mumbled. "It's not important." His reaction didn't go unnoticed by Jiraiya, but the old pervert decided to simply file that fact away for future teasing of his apprentice. Clapping his hands for attention, he gathered everyone at the center of the barrier seal. "Alright, you all know why we're here. Naruto, I need you to sit here at the center of the barrier. Inoichi, you can be anywhere you want as long as you don't try to cross out of the barrier while it's up. Reynard, same thing as Inoichi." Naruto sat and began to relax himself. He wanted to be able to enter his mindscape as soon as he could. Inoichi sat next to him and Reynard lay his head on Inoichi's lap. Seeing this, Naruto raised an eyebrow at the two. "It's easier for him to transfer my mind like this," Reynard told Naruto. "It is also really comfortable." Seeing that everyone was ready, Jiraiya sat on the inside edge of the barrier. "Are you sure you want to be here?" he asked Temari when she sat next to him. "He is my husband," Temari replied with an edge to her voice. "I shouldn't have to remind you that if something happens to him, it will negatively affect the Leaf-Sand Alliance." Jiraiya gave her a knowing look. "Those are valid points, but I noticed that none of them require you to be in here. Is there perhaps something you're not telling me?" Temari flushed. "Shut up." Jiraiya laughed, then assumed a serious expression. Reaching his hands to the inked line in front of him he called out, "Naruto, I'm raising the barrier. You may begin." When he pushed his chakra into the seal, a clear shimmering dome formed around the group. When Jiraiya called out, Naruto instantly dropped into his mindscape. He didn't have to wait too long before Inoichi and Reynard arrived. "Ah, welcome to my mind. Watch your step, it's a bit damp here." Motioning for them to follow him, Naruto leads them to the Kyuubi's cage. "Ah, it's the warden and guests, I see." Kyuubi said as the group arrived before him. "Tell me, why is one of the lesser cousins with you?" "Eh? Lesser cousins? Oh, do you mean Reynard?" Naruto asked in confusion. "If the kitsune next to you is named Reynard then yes." Kyuubi turned his face on Inoichi. "Ah, I see, you had the father of that mind walker bring him here. You went through a lot of trouble to bring him here. Why?" Naruto stared suspiciously at the giant fox. You're not insulting me or threatening to destroy the village or anything. Why? Ayubi looked annoyed and it showed in his response. You've brought a kitsune. I assume that this is business and business comes before pleasure. Ah, I see. Naruto said as he massaged his temples to ease his sudden headache. As you have guessed, yes, I have brought Reynard here to discuss something with you. The kitsune consider me to be your regent since you are sealed within me. What are my duties as regent? Ayubi chuckled in his cage. Ah, I see. Very well, I'm surprised that a human would honor my old oath. Your duties are fairly simple. You must protect and defend the kitsune if and when they request it. I am assuming from the presence of the lesser cousin that the kitsune have requested protection. Naruto sighed. Hi, the idiots in the village hate anything to do with foxes after your attack 13 years ago. So in addition to treating me like crap, they've been hunting and killing the kitsune. All that are left from the woods surrounding the village are now on my estate. Naruto closed his eyes sadly and shook his head. There are probably only a couple dozen left. Ayubi seemed to expand in his cage as a growl sounded through the chamber. Those fools will pay when I get out of here. What have you done about this? Naruto shared a wide-eyed look with Inoichi and Reynard. Dear Kami, the fox sounded pissed. I've arranged for Inyazuka vets to tend to them and have offered sanctuary on my land. To get the Inyazuka to agree, I had to consent to the Inyazuka sending young members of their clan to attempt to form life bonds with some of the kits. Ayubi considered it wasn't a bad idea for the kitsune. Inyazuka bonded with a partner for life, and while not bred for close combat like that, the kitsune had advantages of their own. I suppose your solution is acceptable, since you won't raise the village like I would. You, lesser cousin, Reynard, called you. Come here. Reynard bowed and edged forward to the bars, his body screaming his reluctance. Yes, Kyuubi-sama, might this one inquire, why am I approaching your greatness? Ayubi gave one of his terrifying smiles. I have a present for you, little one. Pressing the end of one of his claws to Reynard's head, Naruto and Inoichi saw a brief flash before Reynard disappeared from Naruto's mindscape. Boy, Fox, what did you just do to him? Naruto yelled in rage. Relax, foolish, I have not harmed him. I simply transferred the basic knowledge of Kitsune Ninjutsu to him. Kitsune Ninjutsu? Wait, what? Fox. I really don't think the village is ready for foxes spitting fireballs. Ayubi sighed. Naruto may be a more interesting container than Mito or Kushina, but he frequently annoyed the hell out of the great kitsune. I do not care what the fools in the village think. When Reynard teaches the others the skills I have shown him, the next pathetic meat sack that attacks one of Inari's blessings will suffer greatly for the mistake. Kyuubi began to laugh as he visualized the delicious shock and horror awaiting the next fool to attack one of the lesser cousins. Naruto glanced at Inoichi and shrugged. He doubted that the foxes would go and seek revenge, but he did like the idea that they would be able to defend themselves if attacked. I wonder, since I'm stuck with Furball here, maybe I should take a page from the Inyazuka clan. I can see some advantages to Kitsune Nin and to hell with any villagers that don't like it. Pardon Kyuubi-san, Inoichi spoke to Fox. I have a question. When my daughter was trapped here, what did you do to her? In the time since, she has had trouble with her chakra control, and I believe you would know why. Ayubi stood behind the bars, tails whipping around behind him. Mortal, you sorely mistaken me. I care not what happens to your spawn, but if I do not answer I'm sure that they will hound me for it, and I do not appreciate being annoyed. Your pathetic clan requires you to send your soul into the target vessel. Your offspring's soul was in direct contact with me, the strongest of the Biju. I assume that such contact forcibly increased her chakra reserves. Now, if you are satisfied, I believe our business is done here. Naruto gave Inoichi a questioning glance, and the man nodded that he was done. Yeah, I think that's all, Fox. Ayubi gave them a truly malevolent smile. Good, now that business is done, it is time for pleasure. Concentrating, he forced as much chakra through the seal as he could and then used Inoichi's link into Naruto's mind as another channel to attack. He laughed as the two vanished in a wave of red chakra and he sat back to watch events unfold. Foolish mortal. Back in the waking world, the first sign of trouble for Temari and Jiraiya was a large explosion of red chakra from Naruto that tossed Reynard and Inoichi hard against the barrier. Temari watched horrified as her husband grew fangs and claws, his whisker marks widening below his red eyes. The red chakra settled around him and formed what almost appeared to be a large fox as three bubbling red chakra tails formed behind him. Oh, this is not good. Jiraiya muttered as he viewed Naruto's transformation. He attempted to get in close to slap the suppression tag on the feral boy, but was forced to back off when a tail swiped through where he would have been. Oi, girly. He yelled at Temari. I need to get this tag on him. Can you distract him? Temari nodded shakily. The killing intent was even worse than Gaara's, but at least she had experience dealing with something like it before. A normal shinobi would have been paralyzed with fright, but Temari pulled her fan off her back and prepared to fight. Naruto's form seemed to crouch, then exploded forward, charging the girl. She wasn't ready for the speed and barely managed to deflect him with her wind. As he rebounded off the barrier, she was just glad that Naruto didn't seem capable like this. She shuddered to think of how bad things would be if he could use his clones like this. Betting the timing down, she began trying to drive him towards Jiraiya using wind blasts, but it wasn't working as well as she had hoped. She could knock him back, but he would just use his tails to reposition himself midair to avoid the Toad Sage. Jiraiya was growing frustrated. This version of Naruto was very fast and agile. He and Temari were under the handicap of trying to fight to subdue the boy, while he was under no such limitations. He was considering summoning Ma and Pa to use Sage mode, but he really didn't want to. It would be like hitting a mosquito with a sledgehammer, and then there was the problem of Temari being present. He really didn't like using the technique in front of women. Growing tired, Temari decided to take a more proactive stance. "Tamatachi no Jutsu," she yelled with a slash of her fan. A visible whirlwind formed around Naruto and lifted him into the air. He began to cut through with his tails, but ran out of time when he slammed full force into the barrier. Bouncing off the barrier, he slammed into the ground hard enough to leave a small crater. Pulling himself to his feet, he cocked his head at Temari, then two claws made of chakra launched themselves at the girl. Temari tried to deflect the attack, but the claws ripped through her and she desperately threw her fan up trying to block. She closed her eyes, not wanting to see the attack she believed would kill her. The claws ripped through the chakra-enhanced fabric of the fan, but stopped right before they struck. Temari opened her eyes to see the chakra claws hovering in front of her face. She looked past them in confusion to see Naruto with his hands pressed against his head. A flicker of blue showed through the red in his eyes and she heard him croak, "Temari-chan." Not one to waste an opportunity, Jiraiya dashed in while he was distracted and slapped the suppression tag on the boy. The red chakra swirl then appeared to drain back into Naruto as he dropped face first into the ground. Temari closed her damaged fan carefully, then ran over to the prone form of her husband. She flipped him over as gently as she could and checked him over. She was relieved when he seemed to be fine, just unconscious. Sitting down, she placed his head on her lap and ran her hand through his hair. After checking Inoichi and Reynard and finding them to be in reasonable condition, Jiraiya checked the barrier seal. He was concerned that the formerly shimmering white chakra shell had taken on a reddish tint. He cursed under his breath as his inspection confirmed his suspicions. Seems that when Temari slammed Naruto into the barrier, some of the Kyuubi's chakra had transferred into the seal, supercharging it. It wasn't too much of a concern he couldn't take the barrier down, but he could feel the rate the chakra was being used and he figured they were trapped for maybe another couple of hours. The fact that Kyuubi's chakra seemed to supercharge the seal was something he might have to bring up with the Gaki at a later time though. Wandering back over to the teens, Jiraiya smiled when he saw Temari fussing over Naruto. Good, the girl was strong and didn't seem to hold Naruto's status against him. He could read between the lines, he knew the two were much closer than even they seemed to realize. He mentally sighed. It seemed that both of his apprentices had surpassed him in at least one thing. While he lived with the knowledge that he would never have the love of his life, both Minato and his son had found strong women to support them. Or was found for him in Naruto's case, he thought with a snort of amusement. He sat down next to Temari. "I like you, girl. You've got spirit." Temari eyed the man cautiously, wondering what he wanted. It was nice to get a compliment from someone like Jiraiya, even if he had somewhat insulted her with the name girl, but she wondered at his motives. "Oh," she replied coolly, eyebrows raised. "I appreciate the compliment, Iro-senin, but I do wonder why." Jiraiya stared off into the distance as he answered. "You're good for the Gaki there. He's a good kid and he has tons of potential, but he needs someone close to him to keep him in check sometimes." Temari nodded in response. "Yeah, I thought about that during the council meeting the other day. I've never seen anyone able to react on the fly the way he does, but I decided then that if he lived in the present, I was going to take the long view." Jiraiya grunted approval. "Speaking of the long view, have you considered your training in the near future?" "I'm not sure what you mean," Temari replied. Glancing at her stomach, Jiraiya carefully considered his words. "Soon, your condition will prevent you from physically training. Have you considered branching out into other skills?" "I haven't really thought about it yet. This is all still really new to me," Temari replied with a frown. "Ah," Jiraiya replied. "I can see that, but I know Tsunade is beginning classes for Medinin soon." Glancing down at Naruto, Jiraiya smirked. "Knowing the Gaki here like I do, it would probably be a good thing for you to learn at least basic Medinin, well you can't train your body." I can see your point, but I've never really thought about being a Medinin. There really aren't a lot of them in Suna." "Well, it's something to think about anyway, but I know that most of the girls near your age will be there. It might be helpful in that long view you talk about if you form some bonds with them. Temari scowled. The old pervert didn't play fair at all. She knew he had a point, several of them in fact, but she dreaded dealing with the fangirls that would be there. Still, she couldn't see Tsunade putting up with that sort of behavior, and Jiraiya was right, she would need something else to train on for a while. Watching the changing expression on the girl's face amused Jiraiya, but he was smart enough to keep his amusement to himself. Laying back on the ground with his hands behind his head, he told her, "Well, we have a couple of hours till the barrier will drop. Wake me when it happens." Temari glared at the man as he fell asleep. Leaning down over Naruto, she whispered to the sleeping boy. "Naruto-kun, you had better never turn out like him or you will regret it." The sun was setting over Konoha as Sasuke stared out the window of his study. He was tired, he was frustrated and he was angry. His life was nothing like he had planned and he truly wanted to blame Naruto. His rival seemed to have taken an advantage over him and there didn't seem to be any way to slow the other boy down. Pain from his arm reminded him of yet another reason to be furious with Naruto, and as he thought of how the dope had ruined him, he felt the curse seal begin to activate, feeding on his rage. A timid knock on the door forced him to tamp down the flames of his temper, and the curse seal retreated, but it would be back. It always came back. "What?" he called out at the door, irritated. The door slid open, and Sakura cautiously poked her head in. "Sasuke-kun, you have a visitor." "HNN." Sasuke responded. "Well, don't just stand there. Show them in." Sakura. Flinching from the anger in his voice, Sakura bowed her head and shuffled out. A few moments later, the bandaged figure of Danzo entered the room. "Elder Danzo, to what do I owe the honor of a visit?" Sasuke said, attempting to be hospitable but mostly coming across as surly. Taking a seat, Danzo studied the boy before him. "Tell me, Uchiha-san, do you still seek power?" Chapter 11. Interlude. OPT briefing. Operational Plan Delta. Brainchild of Commander Shikaku Nara, Operational Plan Delta is a defensive strategy focused on possible hostilities with a Wagakure. Shinobi detachments throughout the Land of Fire are reduced, leaving town and city security mostly to the Fire Daimyo Samurai. The majority of the recalled shinobi are sent to the northwest along the borders of Kusagakure, Amegakure, and Tokigakure. Small detachments are sent to screen other borders as pickets and large patrols sweep the countryside of the Land of Fire. In Konohagakure, the retired and reserve shinobi are also mustered and form a homeguard for the village. Anbu also has a more visible presence as a show of force. To ensure a steady income, low-ranking missions are still completed by long-term genin squads. D-rank missions are completed by academy students. The majority of expenses are paid by a large war chest funded over the years by the Fire Daimyo and previous Hokage Aya. The Jonin commander estimates that Operational Plan Delta may remain activated for no more than 45 days before village income is reduced to unsustainable levels, with an additional 60 days drawing on the war chest. Uzumaki Namikaze is Naruto. Believed to be an orphan of unknown origin by most of Konoha's population, the secret of his heritage was hidden until the announcement of his marriage to Temari of Sunagakure. Naruto had only recently discovered himself that he was the progeny of Minato Namikaze, Yondaime Hokage Aya and Kushina Uzumaki, an S-ranked Kunoichi previous Jinchuriki of Kurama, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Naruto was an outcast for most of his life. While never truly physically mistreated, a handful of drunken attacks quickly stopped by Anbu, he was shunned by the vast majority of the village. In his early years, his only companion was the Sandaime Hokage Aya, referred to by Naruto as Jiji or Old Man. While the majority of the shinobi population were wary of the boy, the civilians, not understanding exactly what a Jinchuriki was, mistreated the boy at every opportunity. Frequently overcharged for even minor items, Naruto found additional companionship from the proprietors of a small raiment stand. Naruto assumed the persona of a laughing prankster early in his youth when he noticed that people that played pranks received attention. Desperately wanting to be acknowledged, Naruto began to dress himself in a bright shade of his favorite color, orange, and began a career as the prank master from hell. As part of this role, Naruto began to bury his darker emotions beneath a smiling mask. Naruto's early education at the Shinobi Academy was sabotaged by both prejudiced instructors and those under orders from key military personnel to fail the boy. Key personnel believed that the boy would be more accessible if forced out of the Shinobi program. Chapter 12. Offers and Presents. Tell me, Uchiha-san, do you still seek power? For Sasuke, the words seemed to ring through the room and he activated his Sharingan in a brief search. Seeing everything was normal, he deactivated his eyes and stared at his guest. I've been removed from the Shinobi Corps and also crippled. Why would you come ask me if I seek power? Danzo considered the boy. He was flawed, but with training and molding, he could be great. I am no longer an active shinobi and I too have been crippled. Do you think I have no power? Now that Sasuke was on the council, he had seen the man there but had never seen him before. Given the facts as he knew them, Danzo was obviously someone that worked from the shadows. Perhaps he could be of use. No, I have seen you at the council sessions. I believe you probably hold some sort of position of power that requires you to hide it. Very astute. Danzo said with a nod. Everyone looks to the visible figures of the village, the Hokage Aya, the Jonin, but not everything a village does is meant to be seen. And you mean to give me this power? Sasuke asked skeptically. You mistake me, Uchiha-san. I am not giving you anything. Danzo replied. I'm merely offering to show you a path that would lead you to the power you seek. If you should prove worthy, of course. Sasuke gritted his teeth as Danzo shot and hit home. Of course he was worthy, he was the last loyal Uchiha. With other paths closed to him, he would do whatever this man required for the power he was offering. I am ready for any tests you may have, Danzo-san. He replied with an edge of anger. Danzo regarded him impassively. No, you are not. Not yet. The first thing you must learn is that emotions are a weapon. Your anger and rage drive you to weakness. Weakness Konoha cannot afford. What would you suggest then, Danzo-san? Sasuke growled out. I will tell you some truths, let me see how you handle them. I am aware that you hate the Uzumaki boy for crippling you, but he is not to blame. You are. Sasuke exploded. How is the dope not to blame? He blew off my arm. Yes, he did. What caused him to do it though, Uchiha-san? Who drew upon their curse seal and used an assassination against another Leaf Nin? As I said, emotions are a weapon. You let your anger take control in that match, and now you must pay the price for it. Danzo's response caused Sasuke to reconsider the events of the match. He still crippled me. Yes, he did, but he could have killed you. Had you done such a thing against me, I would have killed you. His compassion allowed you to live. Yet another reason emotions are a weapon. The Uzumaki boy fails to control his emotions and allows someone that tried to kill him to live. A potentially fatal mistake on the battlefield. Sasuke considered the man's words. They made sense to him, but he lived on his hatred. What was he to do without it? Still, if it was required for power, he would control his emotions. Danzo watched the lesson sink in, and the corner of his mouth twitched in approval. Good, you are beginning to learn. You must not allow your emotions to control your actions. This leads to the second truth, Uzumaki will someday be Hokage Aya. Now Sasuke was shocked. The dobe had always spouted his determination to be Hokage Aya, but Sasuke had always assumed it was simply his way of drawing attention to himself. Now a high-ranking member of the village was telling him that Naruto would be Hokage Aya. I see this shocks you, and for that you can only blame yourself. Taking your emotions out of it, I want you to think about Uzumaki being Hokage Aya. Sasuke narrowed his eyes as he began reviewing what he knew of Naruto now. Several pieces he had previously ignored demanded his attention. He is the son of the Yondaime and is related to the Shodai, Nidaime and Godaime Hokage Aya. Danzo nodded his approval as Sasuke began to speak. Once the boy began to clearly look at the situation, he had an excellent mind. He will be powerful almost beyond belief, provided he is trained correctly. Sasuke continued, unaware of Danzo's thoughts. With his heritage and the Kyuubi to call on, he will be almost unstoppable. His marriage would tie Tsunagakure to Konoha if he was Hokage Aya, even more than it does now. Sasuke paused and looked at Danzo again. Yes, I can see it. The dobe will someday become Hokage Aya. I shudder when I think of him in that spot though. Danzo nodded again. Yes, Uzumaki is a firm believer in the teachings of the Sandaime Hokage Aya. Such teachings lead to weakness for the village, no matter how powerful the individual. Now, what would you suggest in regards to this information? Sasuke placed his good hand under his chin as he began to consider the question. Obviously there would need to be some sort of checker voice of reason. Someone able to do what needed to be done. The Hokage Aya is the military commander, but most village functions are controlled from the council. Only in times of war is the Hokage Aya absolute. I see. He trailed off, realizing what Danzo was subtly suggesting. Tell me, Uchiha-san, what do you see? Danzo said, carefully watching the boy. I would need to fill that role. I have the support of the civilians of the village, and while useful does not get me what I need. I will have to form some sort of alliance with other members of the council to ensure that the dobe has someone opposing his actions. Sasuke smirked at the bandaged man. That was your role, but why come to me now? Danzo considered what to tell the boy. Perhaps a measure of the truth would be needed here. I have always sought the position of Hokage Aya to make the hard choices the Sandaime never would. I can see events in motion, and I know that I will never attain that post now that Uzumaki's heritage has been revealed. It now falls to me to ensure that the adherents of the Will of Fire, as Sandaime was fond of calling his teachings, never completely control the village. They would strip Konoha's power and bargain it away in the name of peace. He nearly spat the last word out despite his emotional control. Sasuke leaned forward, briefly flaring his Sharingan in excitement. I see, and so while the dope is being taught, you will teach me? Perhaps. Danzo replied as he stood and shuffled to the door. You will need to show me that you are worthy before I will commit to anything. He paused at the door and said over his shoulder. It has come to my attention that the Hokage Aya will be training several young Kunoichi in her medical arts. I have heard that Uzumaki's wife may be there as well. A shinobi uses every tool at their disposal, Uchiha-san. Perhaps you should consider that. I will be watching you, show me you are worthy. Having said his piece, Danzo gave a curt bow and exited the room. Sasuke sat back in his chair and considered new options for the future. Danzo may not be able to become Hokage Aya, but perhaps he could take Dobe's dream away. It would be only fair after Uzumaki took him away. He would play along with Danzo and form his own power base. Sakura, he called out. Come here, I need to speak with you. Sakura answered his call and walked into the room. Yes, Sasuke-kun? She asked quizzically. Sasuke took a moment to observe his wife. As it stood, she was useless for anything but breeding stock. The only reason he married her was that she was the only Kunoichi willing to do so after the events with the dope. Given another choice, possibly any other choice, he would never have married her, but perhaps she could actually be useful. He forced a smile as he told her about the medical training. Elder Danzo informed me that the Hokage Aya is beginning classes for Kunoichi in the medical arts. I think that this would be a wonderful opportunity for us, and I would like you to attend. Really? Sakura clapped her hands in glee. Training with the Hokage Aya to be a Medinin. I promise you Sasuke-kun, I won't disappoint you. See that you don't, you represent the Uchiha clan. Sasuke said, dismissing her and turning to stare out the window. Even Sasuke's cold demeanor couldn't shake her from her excitement as she left the room. Maybe if she excelled as a Medinin things would get better here at home. At least the training would get her out of the house. She missed her friends. After testing the water with her toe, Temari sank into the onsen with a groan. Jiraiya had been correct, the barrier had disappeared after a few hours. After waking the man, they'd had to drag Inoichi, Naruto and Reynard back to the village when they couldn't get any of the three to wake up. She had ended up carrying Reynard, who was surprisingly heavy for his small body size. Jiraiya had been stuck with Inoichi and Naruto, and she giggled as she remembered the man swinging the two onto his shoulders. The Toad Sage had not been pleased at carrying two men, and the look on his face when Temari asked him what his intentions for her husband were was hilarious. She hummed happily to herself as she felt the hot water ease the pains caused by the fight with Naruto. She found it odd that the nicest, sweetest boy she had ever met had an unstoppable rage demon imprisoned within him. I suppose it's for the best, she mused. I'd hate to think of what would have happened if someone like the Uchiha had that sort of creature inside them. She supposed it was his general good nature that helped keep the beast in check, but even that could be overwhelmed, she supposed. Naruto, not her Naruto, but still Naruto had almost killed her today. She was extremely fortunate that her Naruto had somehow stopped the other one from killing her. She idly stroked her still flat stomach, a habit she'd acquired sometime during the past week. Aside from not wanting to die, I really don't think I want to know how Naruto would have reacted when he learned he killed me. Perhaps I shouldn't have been inside the barrier. The sound of the gate leading to the garden opening caused Temari to snap her head up, but she relaxed when she saw Ino walk in wrapped up in a towel. Ino? What are you doing here? Sliding into the water, Ino took a moment to relax before she answered. Well, tonight is the last night for me here. The garden is done, so tomorrow I go back home. She looked around a little wistfully. I figured I would take one last soak beforehand though. Temari nodded. Being from the desert, she could appreciate someone wanting to enjoy the onsen one last time. Sure, there were public ones, but they were public and Jiraiya was still in town. She'd heard of the man's habits from her husband, which was why she'd convinced some of the resident foxes to keep an eye out while she soaked. Jiraiya had tried to peek only once, and she giggled again as she remembered watching the man run off chased by small woodland creatures. Something funny? Ino asked when Temari couldn't stop giggling. Temari waved a hand in a brushing motion. No, just remembering why I really like having a private onsen. Ino tilted her head, then smirked. Oh, Jiraiya right. Yeah, I saw that. One of the strongest shinobi alive being run off by foxes. She leaned forward and whispered. Just between us, when I saw that, I took control of one of the foxes just so I could bite him. Temari laughed uproariously at the information, and Ino sank back into the water with a satisfied smile. So, are you going to come train with us? She asked Temari. Temari stopped laughing and sighed. I think so. She absently stroked her stomach, a gesture not missed by Ino, and continued. I'm not going to be able to train like I want soon, and Hiro-senin made some good points about why I should. Ino laughed. Oh Kami, now Naruto has you calling him that. Temari smirked. Trust me, I have my reasons. I even tossed him over a cliff earlier today when he was being perverted. Ino's eyes widened and she clapped her hands over her mouth. No way. You threw him off a cliff. Temari's smirk widened. You would be amazed at the things you can do with wind. The two girls laughed for a while then settled down to enjoy the water. I'm going to miss you guys. Ino said after a few minutes. Temari eyed her curiously. It's not like you won't see us around. Ino closed her eyes and floated in the water. I know, but the last couple weeks here with you guys have been really fun. She chuckled. I won't spoil the surprise, but he made something for you in the garden I think you'll really like. I never would have guessed that Naruto could be that romantic. Temari arched an eyebrow. Oh? What did he do? Ino stuck out her tongue playfully. I'm not ruining the surprise, but I will say that I'm really kinda jealous. Temari snorted. Jealous? I was married off to another village for political reasons. I didn't even know who the groom was before I got here. Then, no one knew that I had never been taught the contraceptive since I was on a team with my brothers and I got freaking pregnant on my wedding night. The only thing I feel lucky about in the situation is that at least my husband is a really good guy, but even then he has a freaking demon sealed in him. Ino stared wide-eyed as Temari wound down from her rant. Wow, when you put it like that. I don't really know what to say. Temari grinned. Ah, that felt good to let out. Don't get me wrong, though. Everything I just said is true, but I'm actually pretty happy right now. Ino stretched her arms out and formed a triangle with her fingers. She stared through the hole at the stars as she responded. I'm still jealous, you know. We all thought that Sasuke was Prince Charming when we were growing up. He was just so dark and mysterious and all of us girls thought we could just take him and fix him and then he would be our knight in shining armor. Both girls chuckled at the image of Sasuke wearing shining armor, the image was just a droll. And it comes out that the boy we all thought was stupid and weak is really the tragic prince of the play, desperately searching for love and you come out of nowhere and claim him. Temari crossed her arms and gave into a stern look. You all had your chance, but no one bothered to really see him. Even I vastly underestimated him when I first met him. I make no apologies for my good fortune. No, I wouldn't either in your place. Ino sighed. I just wish I had someone that cared for me the way I've seen him care for you. I suppose it's every girl's dream, huh? Temari replied. Who knows Ino, maybe someday your prince will come. After finishing her soak and her chat with Ino, Temari padded back into the house to check up on Naruto. Temari had tucked him into bed after Jiraiya dropped him off before leaving to take Inoichi home. She was concerned when entering the bedroom she saw no sign of her husband. She closed her eyes and concentrated, feeling his chakra nearby. At least he is still in the house. Following the trail, she found him intently studying a scroll in his father's old study. Looking around, she noticed a half-dozen clones also sitting reading scrolls as well. Before she had time to say something, the Naruto at the desk she assumed was the real one began furiously scribbling on a scroll. Silently, she crossed the room to see him working on what appeared to be a very complicated seal. So intent on his work he never noticed her presence, he jerked an alarm when Temari gently touched his shoulder. His flailing knocked the ink pot over and ruined the seal he'd been working on. Cursing under his breath, Naruto began trying to clean up the mess, but mostly just smeared ink over everything. Temari watched his actions with a certain amount of alarm. Usually he would greet her, no matter how short the time then had been apart. Now he was refusing to even look at her and she knew that something was very wrong. Temari was many things smart, beautiful, strong, proud and rather blunt. She spun the chair Naruto was sitting in to face her and planted her arms on the armrests on both sides, trapping him in the chair. Naruto, what's wrong? Naruto refused to meet her eyes, taking small glances and immediately looking away. Nothing, Temari-chan. He said with forced cheer. Just working on my. Temari narrowed her eyes and her expression became stern. Naruto, look at me. When he refused to turn his head to face her, she removed one of her hands from the chair and forced him to meet her eyes. This isn't nothing. I know nothing, nothing happens to be a good friend of mine, and this isn't it. She was trying to both get his attention and lighten the atmosphere with her small joke. I broke my promise. Naruto muttered. I'm sorry, you did what? Temari asked with a great deal of confusion. Naruto crossed his arms and stared at her feet, but he did raise his voice. I broke my promise, Temari-chan. I swore I would protect you, and I almost killed you today. I'm working on a seal for myself, something you can use on me if the fox crews with me again. Temari chewed on his answer. Yes, he had almost killed her, but it wasn't really him. She remembered her thoughts in the onsen, her Naruto had saved her. Naruto, that's not true, you did protect me. She finally said. Naruto jerked his head up in surprise at her statement. He'd been expecting her to be very angry with him, possibly not wanting anything to do with him after what happened. I suppose I should stop assuming the worst, but before Temari-chan, it's all I knew. I. He paused, unsure what to say. I'm not sure what to say here. I know what happened. I was seeing everything in a red haze after the stunt the Fox team pulled and I almost killed you. Temari leaned forward, touching her forehead to his. Naruto, you can't blame yourself for this. Yes, you went berserk when the Fox pushed his power into you, but you didn't actually harm any of us. You fought off the effects of his chakra before anything really happened. Naruto winced. Temari-chan, I saw where those claws were. If I had been even a second later, you would be dead and I would be to blame. He paused and brought a hand up to cup her cheek softly. I don't think I could take losing you. Temari gently bopped him on the head. Naruto, you broke out of the Kyuubi's power when you saw I was threatened. I'm not afraid of you and you're not going to lose me. Taking his hand from her chin, she placed it against her stomach. I'm also pretty sure this ties us together too. Naruto closed his eyes and focused on his hand. He wasn't a Metanin like Tsunade of course, but underneath his hand, he could feel a faint chakra signature within Temari's. Yeah, he said huskily. I suppose it does. Temari was glad to see him recovering from his little bout of depression. Turning to the table, she guided the subject to something else. So, tell me about this seal. Naruto shrugged. I'm trying to create a suppression seal like what Iro Sennin used on me, but one that is permanent and can be used from a distance. I figure if I get it right, you'd always have a way to stop me if Kyuubi decides to be a team again and he will. Temari stared at the seal in horror. Naruto, that's a really stupid idea. Eh? Naruto wasn't sure where that came from. Wouldn't she want a way to stop him if the worst happened? Temari sighed. Naruto, the idea of a suppression seal is great in theory, but what happens if an enemy learns how to trigger it? Naruto's eyes widened. He hadn't thought about that. He looked at the notes for the seal as his mind raced. She really had a point and it would actually make anyone that knew how to trigger the seal into an even larger target if his enemies ever discovered it. Damn it, I didn't think of that. Temari giggled at his expression. And that, dear husband, is why you have me. Someone has to think of these things and we both know it's not going to be you. She said with a teasing lilt to her voice. Naruto pouted. That's not very nice, Temari-chan. Temari laughed at him. I don't recall ever claiming to be a nice Naru-kun. Naruto decided he wasn't going to win this argument, so he took the mature route of continuing to pout while ignoring the wide grin on his wife's face. Something about Temari's appearance had been bugging him since she got his attention and it suddenly popped into head. Nah, Temari-chan, why are you wearing a robe? Temari glanced down and blinked. Oh, I was in the onsen earlier and I never got dressed after I came in to check on you and you weren't in bed. I guess I just forgot. Hey, that reminds me, Ino came in to use the onsen before she went back to her parents and she said you had a surprise for me in the garden. Naruto grumbled under his breath. She did she? I suppose I shouldn't have let her see it given her tendency to gossip. It's not like she told me what Naru-kun was, just that it existed. Temari replied. Oh, so you haven't seen it yet? No, she said it was a surprise you had for me so I resisted the urge to go look, but now I'm really curious. Well, Naruto said dryly. We can go see it, but you'll have to let me out of the chair first. Temari blushed when she realized she was still trapping him in the chair. She backed off to allow him to get up and took his offered hand as they headed out to the garden. She was confused when Naruto led her to a back corner that appeared to just be flowers. Naruto? Naruto flashed her a foxy grin. Hi. As he dispelled that he'd had Ino use, the ordinary flowers became something else entirely. Apparently he hadn't listened when she told him not to have Gaara turn part of the garden into something resembling the desert near Sunagakure, but she was now glad he hadn't. Divided from the garden by a low wall to hold the sand, Naruto and Gaara had somehow found the time to create something remarkably like an oasis. She wasn't sure how they had found the time as hectic as things had been, but she suspected massive abuse of shadow clones, given the amount of work it looked to have been. Moving across the sand, relishing the feel of it on her bare feet, she entered the oasis to find a small gazebo, surrounded by carefully cultivated flowers of desert lilies, her favorite flower. Standing next to the gazebo was a life-size statue of her and her brothers standing next to each other in their battle poses. Oh, Naruto. She whispered as she started to cry. I don't know what to say, it's beautiful. Naruto smiled as he pulled her into a hug. I wanted you to have a part of the garden that was all yours. I'll have clones come in to tend to the flowers from time to time, but otherwise, this is your sanctuary. Resting her chin on his shoulder, a somewhat uncomfortable position given her height advantage, she pointed at the statue. Naruto, what is that? Or rather, how did you do that? Naruto chuckled as he explained. I'm not sure if you know this, but apparently Gaara has taken up a hobby to occupy himself since he can't sleep. I guess he goes out into the desert at night and uses his sand to make sculptures of things. As you can see, he's actually pretty good." Temari pulled out of the hug to go run her hand along the statue of herself. "Yeah, this is really good." She looked over at him when Naruto started to laugh. "What's so funny?" "Oh, you missed the best part of this. Kankuro managed to stop me and Gaara when we started painting the face of his statue purple." Gaara just turns to him and goes, "Nai-san, we just wished to accurately portray your makeup for Temari." Temari began to giggle as she pictured Gaara telling Kankuro that in his usual monotone and found it to be hilarious. Yeah, it was hilarious. Kankuro couldn't tell if he should be shocked that Gaara was making a joke or pissed that he was calling it makeup. Still giggling, Temari sat down in the gazebo and watched the reflection of the stars in the water of the oasis. The fragrance of the flowers drifted in the wind, and if she closed her eyes, she could almost imagine she was back in Sunagakure. Not quite, but it was close enough. While Temari was enjoying herself in the gazebo, Naruto received a visitor. A small toad wearing goggles of all things approached him and spit a scroll out at his feet. Opening it, he was far from shocked to see it was from Jiraiya. It was delivered by a toad after all. Temari popped her head over his shoulder to read it as Naruto frowned. "Oh, he wants you to start training tomorrow, huh?" "Yeah," he replied. "I'm a bit worried. Iro Sennin said to meet him back at the barrier seal, and I think he wants me to use Kyuubi's chakra." Temari shrugged. "I wouldn't be surprised. You are, after all." Naruto gave her a level look. "Temari-chan, I don't want to use the furball's power. If my mother and father could become SNSS rank ninja without using fuzzball, I want to do so as well." "Naruto, that's a rather naive way to think of it." Temari replied after a short pause. "No," Naruto said firmly. "I know that I'll have to use its power at some point, but the stronger I am, the more powerful I'll be when I have to use it." Temari wasn't sure she agreed. He needed to learn how to control himself while using the chakra, but decided that could be an issue for another day. Taking his hand, she began to lead him back to the house. "It's getting late. We should go to bed." Naruto nodded and enjoyed the warmth of her hand as they strolled through the garden. He cheerfully waved at the handful of kitsune that popped out to watch the two teens pass by. He was pleased to see that despite the cruel treatment their kind had endured, none of them seemed to be afraid of Temari or him. Entering the house, Temari dropped her hand from Naruto's and turned back to him. With a sly smile, she allowed her robe to slide off, revealing her nude figure. Naruto gulped and tried to keep his eyes on her face, but was rapidly losing that fight. "Temari-chan." Temari swayed closer to him and whispered huskily in his ear, "I said we should go to bed, I didn't say we should go to sleep." Naruto smiled as his wife took his hand and led him to the bedroom. This being married thing had its perks. Chapter 13. Toads and Training. "Good morning, Iro Sennin." Naruto called happily as he bounced his way onto the training field. Following him at a far more sedate pace was a tired and bemused Temari. "Well, you sure seem cheerful this morning." Jiraiya called back with a knowing smirk at Temari. "So why is she here anyway?" Naruto replied. "That medical training doesn't start till tomorrow and she asked to come along." Moving closer to his sensei, Naruto dropped his voice. "I wasn't going to tell her she couldn't come and I figured with her here, you will have to train me and not go peep if you want to avoid another trip off the cliff." Glancing between the two, Jiraiya grinned easily. "Well played, Gaki, well played." Jiraiya scratched his chin and thought. "You know, your dad did the same thing." Jiraiya shuddered. "I loved your mother like she was my daughter, but she was one scary woman." Glancing over his shoulder at his wife, Naruto saw she was idly toying with her fan as she waited for the two to stop being stupid. "I fear the fan, Iro Sennin. I fear the fan." Watching Temari flip her fan open and slice a training post into ribbons in boredom, Jiraiya paled. "Just think. She's gonna train with Tsunade. Just imagine what that fan will do with enhanced strength behind it." Naruto shuddered again. "Iro Sennin, sometimes I hate you." He stopped as a thought struck him. "Hey, speaking of Temari-chan and training, you think we could let her sign with the Toads?" "It's not just that simple, Naruto." Jiraiya responded sternly. "I could let her sign, but Gamabunta has the final say, so why do you want her to?" Naruto rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. "Well, I'm not always going to be near her and you know the Toads are awesome. Plus, we can pass messages to each other with the Toads if we are apart from each other." Jiraiya boomed out a laugh. "Worried about her for when you're not there, huh? I suppose it won't hurt to ask Gamabunta." He paused to scratch his head in thought. "Alright, I'm gonna go bring her over, you summon Bunta." Naruto's irritation bled through into his voice. "Me? Why don't I go get her and you summon Boss Toad?" Jiraiya waved over his shoulder as he walked towards Temari's corner of the field. "Cause he's still irritated with me for not stepping in and stopping your fight with Han." Naruto's eyes widened as he got the implications. "What? You were there? We almost got killed, Iro Sennin." But you didn't. Mumbling under his breath as he planned his revenge, Naruto began to focus chakra for the summoning. He could cheat and use Kyuubi's, but he wanted to see if his improved chakra control would let him summon the boss on his own. As Naruto began to summon Gamabunta, Jiraiya reached Temari. Yo, fangirl. Gaki and I need you for something. Temari narrowed her eyes at the man as she snapped her fan shut. She was curious as to what the two wanted, but Jiraiya would pay for calling her fangirl. Yes, Hiro Sennin. She said, drawing the nickname out. What did you need me for? To further lure the man to his doom, she even went so far as to batter lashes at him. As Gamabunta appeared across the field with his usual complaint about being summoned, Jiraiya felt warning bells sound in his head. The maths in his head went something like violent, aggressive girl, plus sweet tone and flirting equals danger, danger. Unfortunately for him, the distraction of Bunta's bellow allowed Temari into range, and he winced when he saw the fan incoming. Why? He complained in his head. She's supposed to pound the gaki. Standing on Gamabunta's head, Naruto had a clear view of his wife pounding the crap out of his sensei with her fan, and he did the only thing he could, he laughed hysterically. I know he's letting her do it, but it's still funny as hell. Bunta removed his pipe to blow a stream of smoke. Naruto, I hope you didn't summon me to fight her. If you do, I will punish you for wasting my time. Naruto's laughter shifted to a more nervous chuckle as he scratched the back of his neck again. Hey, it's not like that, boss. The woman pounding on Hiro Sennin is my wife, and we wanted to ask permission for her to sign the contract. A huge toad rolled an eye up towards the boy on his head. Well, she certainly seems spirited. The toad settled himself and boomed out across the field. Jiraiya, stop screwing around and bring the girl here. In response to the call, Jiraiya popped up off the ground in front of a surprised and panting Temari, looking completely fine. Well, you heard him, Gazette. Let's go talk to the toad. Temari gritted her teeth as she followed him. Coquette was at least better than fangirl, but she dearly desired to strike him with her fan again. She glanced at the edge of the field overlooking the waterfall, and a sinister smirk played across her face briefly. Or I could wait and fling him off the cliff again. Gamabunta carefully evaluated the girl following behind Jiraiya. He'd seen her before, when he and Naruto had fought Shukaku and again when they fought the Gobi. The fact that the girl would stick around for fights involving Biju was impressive. That she would beat on Jiraiya was amusing, but another point in her favor. He hadn't made a decision. He was waiting to speak to her, but the girl had potential. Naruto hopped down as the two reached Bunta's location and happily bounced over to Temari's side. Temari-chan, he said, gesturing at the mountainous toad. This is Gamabunta, the boss toad. Boss, this is my wife Temari-chan. Temari bowed low. It is a pleasure to meet you, Gamabunta-sama. She wasn't sure why the two had apparently randomly summoned the contract boss to meet her, but she wanted to make a good first impression. Gamabunta chuckled. Polite as well. You could learn from her, Naruto. Ignoring the boy's protests, Gamabunta addressed the girl directly. I have been summoned to consider you for the toad contract. He paused momentarily as the girl almost appeared to faint before she was steadied by Naruto. Tell me, Temari, why do you faintly smell of weasels? Temari braced herself against Naruto. She felt a bit unsteady. Being offered a legendary contract like the toad's was not something she had been expecting at all. I have a partial contract with the weasels from my time as Asuna Kunoichi. I only have a personal summon. His seal is located on my fan, Gamabunta-sama. Bunta blew a stream of smoke as he considered this. This is highly irregular, Naruto. Why do you and Jiraiya wish for the girl to sign with us? Boss, she's pregnant. Naruto called out from his place next to Temari. I may not always be able to be with her, and I want the toads to help. Girl, would you give up your summon to sign with us? Temari was torn. The toad contract was powerful, but she'd worked with Kamatari for years. It pained her, but she only had one response. I'm sorry, Gamabunta-sama. As much as I respect the toads, I've worked with my partner for several years and I simply cannot just toss that away. Forgive me for wasting your time. She finished her statement with an extremely deep bow. Gamabunta chuckled again as he regarded Temari. Good, I would never accept someone who would throw away a summon friendship. I would have you summon your weasel, Temari. Nodding, Temari backed away and summoned a giant white-furred weasel. The weasel wore a black vest with red trim and had his left eye covered with an eye patch. The weasel looked around expectantly as he planted the butt of his scythe into the ground. Mistress Temari, why have you summoned me? I see no battle here. Temari smiled at Kamatari and ruffled his fur. I'm sorry, Kamatari, I was asked to summon you by him. She said, pointing at Gamabunta. Kamatari jerked in surprise when he realized exactly who he was looking at. He glanced nervously between Temari and Bunta. Mistress, we aren't going to fight Gamabunta-sama, are we? Temari laughed gently and stroked his head soothingly. No, I was offered the Toad contract, but I refused to give up our friendship for it. After I refused, Gamabunta-sama requested I summon you. The weasel stared at his summoner slack-jawed. You refused the Toad contract for me? Temari smiled at him. Of course I did. We've been friends and partners for years. I wasn't going to just give that up for an offer of power. Amatari bowed to Temari and turned to face Bunta. Amabunta-sama, I am Kamatari of the Weasels. How may I be of service to you today? We need to address the issue of your summoner, Kamatari-san, Gamabunta replied politely. Looking around, Kamatari's gaze passed over the humans gathered nearby. Amabunta-sama, I believe that we should have this conversation privately. I realize that the humans here are all summoners, but this may involve internal matters. Reaching out, Bunta carefully picked the weasel up and placed him on his head. Very well. Jiraiya, Naruto, summon me again when you end your training for the day. The issue will be resolved by then. Getting a wave of acknowledgement from Jiraiya and a cheerful grin from Naruto, Gamabunta dispelled his summoning, taking Kamatari with him to Mount Myaboku. Alright. Naruto cheered. Time to train. What are we doing today, Iro-senin? Jiraiya shook his head, suffering from a mild case of mood whiplash. It figured the Gaki would be raring to go as soon as Bunta left. Motioning at the two teens to sit, Jiraiya sank to the ground to sit opposite them. Alright, Naruto. He said seriously. With the current alert status, I have roughly 2 weeks until I have to leave and tend to my spy network. I've arranged some further instruction for you for after I leave, but I intend to push you hard until then. Naruto nodded solemnly. I understand, Jiraiya-sensei. What will we be working on? Well, to get started, I need 4 Kage Bunshin. After Naruto created the clones, Jiraiya created one of his own and motioned Naruto's clones to follow him. Those 4 will begin training on deep meditation. Iro-senin. Naruto shouted. How is meditating going to help me? Calm down, Gaki. Jiraiya replied, motioning for Naruto to settle down. Let me explain before you get all worked up. Right now, your body is not physically mature enough for me to teach you most of my best techniques. That doesn't mean we can't do some prep work now, though. One of the things I want to teach you in the future requires you to sit absolutely still for a period of time. That's what those 4 clones are learning to do. Alright, Naruto said suspiciously. I suppose that answers what those clones are doing, but what about us? I know you're learning your mother's taijutsu and styles, Naruto, but I can't help you with those. One of the instructors I have for you after I leave probably can, so what do I do with you now? Oh, that's right. He said with an evil grin. Now I remember. I'm going to train your speed and strength. Bring it, Iro-senin. Naruto shouted, standing up and pointing at him. I can take whatever you got. Jiraiya stood facing the boy. Ah, you'll drop halfway through, shrimp. Boys. Temari said, breaking in. If you 2 baka are done with me, I think I'm going to just go train out of the way. Ah, come on, Temari-chan. Naruto called out to her. Come train with me. Temari face palmed almost in unison with Jiraiya. Walking back over to her husband, she cupped his face in her hands. Naruto, she said sweetly. I'm restricted from heavy physical training because of you. She finished her statement loud enough to make his ears ring. Rubbing his pinkies in his ears to get rid of the ringing, he glared at Jiraiya for laughing at him. Ow, I'm sorry, Temari-chan. I forgot. Seeing Jiraiya's wince and Temari's rapidly reddening face, Naruto replayed his comment in his head. Oh shit, not what I meant. No, I mean I forgot that you were already restricted in your training, not that you were pregnant, Temari-chan. He blurted, trying to head off his impending doom. Jiraiya coughed. Okay, now can we get to our training, Gaki? When Naruto nodded, he pressed on. I said I was going to work on your speed and strength, so we're going to spar with Naruto. You're going to keep your gravity and resistance seals on. We're just going to spar, Iro-senin. Don't get me wrong, I like sparring, but that doesn't really seem like heavy training to me. Jiraiya's evil grin returned. I wasn't finished, Gaki. Right now your speed and strength are about average even if you lack the reach. I'm going to press you from just above your ability level, and as you get better, so will I. Now, this is pure taijutsu, so no, with the exception of the, got it? Wait. No other than Naruto faced his sensei, confused. I get constantly fighting at a higher level, but why just the I pretty much always fight with Bunshin? Jiraiya nodded. Yes, you do. That won't help you here, though. You know they don't transfer anything physical to you, and that's what we're going to be working on. Since you don't have the reach, what I want you to concentrate on is creating as fast as you can in either hand when you strike. I get it. Naruto shouted as he almost vibrated in excitement at the thought of training. By the time you have to leave, I'll be able to create or dispel with either hand as I strike. Naruto's eyes lit up as he considered the possibilities. If I can do that and fully master Hiraishin, I'll be able to use it like Two-Sen did. Jiraiya laughed. That's the idea Gaki, but you have a long way to go. Are you ready? Temari leaned in and whispered to Naruto. Naru-kun, if you can solidly hit the perverted old man, I'll have something special for you later. Naruto's eyes widened as he turned to face her. Really? When she nodded at him with a sultry grin, Naruto turned and pointed at Jiraiya again. You're so going down Iro-senin. Let's get wild. The next several hours were amusing enough for Temari that she eventually stopped her light training in favor of just watching Naruto and Jiraiya from a distance. She tried getting closer, but after the third time Naruto blasted her with dirt, she'd moved further away. She wasn't surprised that Jiraiya was beating the stuffing out of her husband. The man was one of the Sannin for Kami's sake. What did surprise her was that in the few hours since the two began, she could see visible improvement in Naruto's speed. It had her very, very curious as to what his speed would be like once he removed the seals. Noting that the sun was beginning to sink towards the horizon, she called to get their attention. Hey Naruto, Iro-senin. It's getting towards evening. Shouldn't you summon Gamabunta back? Jiraiya waved to show he heard her and dropped out of his fighting stance. Seeing this, Naruto wobbled over to Temari and face planted into the ground next to her. It hurts. He whined. Ah, poor baby. Temari taunted him. Tell you what, when we get home, how about we go soak in the onsen? Naruto grunted and gave her a shaky thumbs up before dropping his arm limply back to the ground. He groaned and rolled over when he heard the hollow boom Gamabunta always made when summoned. Seeing Bunta and Jiraiya quietly conferring, Naruto decided he didn't care. He hurt too much to go see what they were talking about. After Bunta dismissed himself, Jiraiya walked over to the teens. Pulling the scroll off his back, he opened it and handed it to Temari. The toads and the weasels have reached an agreement. He told her. The weasels apparently didn't want to give you up as a summoner, even though the contract is Sunagaker. The fact that they didn't impress the toads and they want you to sign. Temari stared blankly at the scroll. What about Kamatari? She asked on the brink of tears. Jiraiya held a finger up. Ah, that's the compromise. Because you tend to summon him from the seal on your fan, the toads will allow you to continue to summon him. As her face lit up at the news, Jiraiya squatted in front of her. Understand, once you sign this scroll, he said, pointing at the scroll on her lap. You will only be able to summon Kamatari. You will never be able to summon another weasel, ever. Biting her thumb to draw the blood needed for the scroll, Temari smiled up at him. I don't care. As long as I keep my partner, I'm happy to sign with the toads. Rolling the scroll up after she handed it back, Jiraiya glanced at the sky. It is getting late. He assumed a lecherous expression. If you'll excuse me, I need to go do some research. Temari sighed as the man ran off. Getting to her feet, she dusted herself off and extended a hand to help Naruto to his feet. As she helped the exhausted boy back to their home, she flicked his ear to get his attention. I know that you're his apprentice, but if you ever start acting like Iro-senin, you will regret it. Satisfied at his frantic nodding of agreement, she softened her tone. Alright then, let's get home and hit the onsen. She smirked at him. You know, you never actually hit Iro-senin, so I'm sorry but you won't get that special treat. Naruto hung his head. Life was so unfair sometimes. The next morning, Temari jokingly told Naruto to enjoy his day and headed to the hospital for the beginning of her medical training. She really wanted to do some physical training, if not quite to the extremes Naruto was going through. She hoped that the medical classes would at least be interesting, even if it wasn't really a subject she really cared about. She grimaced and absently stroked her stomach as she walked. Stupid husband, gets me pregnant, gets me stuck in Medellin training, then gets to spar with Iro-senin. At least she would also be getting training from one of the Sannin, but she still wasn't looking forward to days spent in a roomful of kunoichi. Entering the classroom she noticed that even though she was early, most of the seats were already taken by excited girls. Keeping an impassive face, she mentally rolled her eyes at the fangirl antics of the girls in the room. To be fair, she reminded herself, most of these girls probably became kunoichi because of Tsunade. I could see plenty of Suna kunoichi getting this excited if Chiyo-sama were to teach. Noticing Ino waving at her, Temari smiled and handed over to the seat the girl had saved for her. Good morning Ino. You seem excited. She said as she saw the blonde girl bouncing around in her chair. Ino's eyes lit up as she responded. Yes, she shouted enthusiastically. I know I've trained a little with her before, but this is a really important step to making it as her apprentice. Temari snorted as she took her seat. That's great for people that want to be a Medellin. I'm pretty much stuck here cause I have to be. Ino blinked owlishly at her. If you don't want to be here, why are you? Temari gritted her teeth. Because my stupid husband got me pregnant and now I'm restricted on what I can do. Ino shook her head, bemused. Not really. Cause I remember a woman in the onsen that seemed really happy to be pregnant. Wait, your wedding was only like 2 weeks ago. How did you get restricted already? Temari sighed and absently stroked her stomach again. I suppose I'm not unhappy to be pregnant. She admitted. It just seems unfair that he gets to go train with Iro-senin and I'm stuck here. Ino nodded. Yeah, I totally get that. Maybe we can get Tsunade-sama to research a way to make him carry the baby. The two exchanged amused smiles at the thought. So why are you already restricted? Temari rolled her eyes at her friend. Ino, you do remember that Naruto is actually the head of 2 clans, right? Oh, that's right, I forgot. Ino said, shaking her head. So, Tsunade-sama restricted you because you're carrying the heir to 2 clans and the village can't take any chances then? Temari slumped in her chair. Yeah, that's pretty much it. The funny thing is that if I wasn't pregnant, Naruto would be stuck in the village. Now that I am, he can go out on missions. If I didn't absolutely know that he didn't plan it, I'd hurt him for this. The girls shared a laugh and then Ino's head popped up when she saw a flash of pink in the door. Tommy, is that Sakura? It is. Standing up, she waved at her old rival. Hoi, forehead, over here. Sakura was ecstatic to see her blonde friend again and it showed as she walked over and grabbed a chair. Hey a pig, haven't seen you in a while. The two traded glares then hugged each other tightly. I really missed you, forehead. Ino whispered to Sakura. Sakura pulled Ino in tighter and began to cry as she whispered back. I missed you as well, Ino pig. Things just aren't going like I thought they would. At this point, Sakura noticed Temari sitting next to them for the first time. She pulled away from Ino and frowned as she wiped her tears away. Hey, she said to Ino. What's she doing here? Ino raised an eyebrow at the tone Sakura used. It sounded like she hated Temari and a quick glance at her fellow blonde confirmed that Temari hadn't missed it either. Forehead. What's the problem? She is. Sakura spat, pointing at Temari. If she hadn't come here, I'd still have my team and Sasuke-kun wouldn't be crippled. Turning her face, she added in a whisper. Maybe he wouldn't be so cold then. Temari was calm, cool and collected. She was the matriarch of both the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans, she could handle a whiny fangirl Kunoichi blaming her for her life's woes and still stay serene. Suck it up you whiny fangirl wanted Kunoichi. Or not. Temari ignored the sudden silence in the room and ripped into the girl she mentally referred to as Pinky. It's not like I was given a choice to come here. As for your team and your husband, I had nothing to do with it. Sakura cast her eyes to the floor. I'm sorry. She mumbled just loud enough for Temari to hear. She shifted her position to hide behind Ino. It just seems that since you got here, my life has been bad. Temari planted her hands on her hips and jutted her jaw out aggressively. Not my problem, Pinky. His anger partially mollified by the apology, Temari was now curious. I thought you got what you wanted from life. Why would you say your life's bad? Seeing Temari had cooled down, Sakura wrapped her arm around Ino and dragged her over next to Temari. I don't understand it. She whispered to the two girls. I knew he was cold in the academy, but he asked me to marry him. I thought maybe he'd made a breakthrough and I was going to be there and help him make everything better. Temari glanced at Ino, reminded of the conversation from the onsen the night before. That seems kinda stupid. She whispered back. When the two girls glared at her, she shrugged. Hey, I call things as I see them and it is stupid. That boy only cares about power. Hell, I'll even bet that he is the one that sent you to this class. How did you know that? Sakura stammered, shocked at the accuracy of Temari's statement. Temari rolled her eyes. I'm the daughter of a cage. I grew up dealing with people just like your husband, Pinky. Noticing Tsunade and Shizune enter the room, Temari shooed Ino and Sakura back to their seats. We're out of time, but if you want to continue this conversation later, I might be able to help you some. Taking her seat, Sakura stared at Temari suspiciously. Why would you want to help me? Temari cradled her head in her hands and took a deep calming breath. Lifting her head, she gave Sakura her most piercing stare. Because my baka husband would want me to help one of his friends. She said tightly. Any response from Sakura was cut off when Tsunade slammed her palm down on the desk at the front of the room. Alright, listen up. You're all here to learn how to keep your squad alive. Her eyes flashed at Temari and the corner of her mouth quivered. Some of you may have more difficulty with that task than others though. Temari groaned and hid her face in her hands. More difficulty? She thought incredulously. The man ran his own Kodachi through his stomach just to piss the freaking biju sealed inside him off. Glancing past Ino, she was amused to see Sakura rubbing her temples as if to clear a headache. What? Sakura asked, feeling Temari's eyes on her. Your baka husband is still my teammate. Temari shrugged to acknowledge the point and turned her attention back to the front of the room. Tsunade was continuing to explain the role and duties of a medanin, but Temari turned her out. She might have to learn medicine, but she was no medanin. Temari was amusing herself by idly tapping out a traditional Suna drinking song with her pen when Tsunade finally wrapped up her little speech. "Alright, when Shizune calls your name, please come to the front and pick up your textbook," Tsunade said, pulling out a 8-inch thick book. Seeing the book, Temari began banging her head on the table as she muttered curses under her breath. She was going to kill her husband for this. The next 2 weeks passed very quickly for the busy Namikaze clan. Despite loathing the textbook and lectures on human anatomy, Temari had found that the practical application of her new knowledge wasn't bad. It had actually come in really handy several times when Jiraiya dragged an unconscious Naruto back to the house. Frankly, it was good practice for her. The day after Jiraiya left, Naruto was dozing in the garden when a blonde messenger found him. Ino smirked and began sneaking up on him until he spoke. "I know you're there, Ino. The foxes already told me." Outing a bit at not being able to scare him, Ino passed on her message. "Hokage Ayasama needs you in her office, Naruto." "Did Bach-an say why?" Ino shook her head. "No, she didn't, but I bet with Jiraiya-sama gone, it's probably for a mission." Naruto's head perked up at that. "Oh, I hope so. I haven't been out of the village since me and Hirosenin tracked down Bach-an." Running inside to let Temari know he'd been called to the Hokage Aya Tower, Naruto made his way to Tsunade's office. Deciding to take a page from both Kakashi and Hirosenin's playbook, Naruto ignored the usual way and jumped up to the window. "Morning, Bach-an." He called cheerfully from his perch on the windowsill. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose in irritation. What was with certain shinobi and that damn window anyway? Yeah, get in here Gaki." Hopping in, Naruto walked over in front of the desk and snapped to attention. "Junin Uzumaki Namikaze reporting as ordered to Hokage Aya Bach-an," he said with a snicker. Tsunade glared at him. "You think that's funny don't you, Gaki? Well, I have a mission for you. C-class escort. Interested?" Naruto stopped snickering. "What's the mission, Bach-an?" he asked, moving closer to the desk to take the scroll Tsunade was holding out to him. Tsunade summarized as Naruto read through the scroll. "You are to escort the actress Yuki Fujikaze to the land of snow while she films the new Princess Gale movie." Naruto nodded, still reading the scroll. "Sounds good, Bach-an. Since I don't have a team right now, who am I going with?" Tsunade's sudden grin alarmed Naruto for reasons he wasn't entirely sure of. Something about that smile seemed off. "Don't worry Naruto," she said sweetly. "They should be here soon." Almost as soon as the words were out of her mouth, a loud disturbance was heard from outside the office. "Yosh. I have defeated you this time my eternal rival. Next time, I will do better and if I can't I will." A feminine voice cut him off. "Lee, shut up and get in the office." As Team Guy entered the office, Naruto turned to glare at Tsunade. "You're so evil Bach-an. What did I ever do to you?" Tsunade pointed at the paperwork on her desk and glared right back. "Oh for Kami's sake Bach-an, just use Kage Bunshin for it." Tsunade face-palmed at the obviousness of the solution. She felt so stupid for not thinking of it herself. Shaking her head she put her elbow on the desk and rested her chin on her hand. "I is currently running one of the patrols, so I'm assigning his team to you for this assignment. Estimated time for this mission is approximately 1 month. One of the reasons I'm assigning you, Naruto, is that if problems should crop up, you have your summons to communicate with me. Any questions?" Naruto rolled his eyes. "A month? Bach-an, Temari is gonna kill me." Tsunade snorted. "You'll be fine. Just remember to get her a souvenir or something." With a last glare at Tsunade, Naruto turned to face Team Guy who were staring at him curiously. "Alright guys, looks like you've been assigned to me for this C rank. We're headed to the land of snow so pack for 2 weeks and make sure to include cold weather gear. Meet me at the gate in 1 hour." Chapter 14. Cold as ice. Temari surveyed the mess in her living room with a frown. Why she let Ino talk her into hosting meetings of her fellow kunoichi she wasn't sure. She did know that Ino was going to help her clean up the mess or she was going to shove her fan down the girl's throat. With that in mind, Temari began the hunt for her fellow blonde. "I keep forgetting how useful it is to have Naruto around," she thought as she searched. "Those clones of his are great for stuff like this." Thinking about Naruto brought a scowl to her face. He'd been gone 2 weeks already and he hadn't bothered to send her a message. The Hokage Aya had gotten a message 2 days ago. A frantic toad had materialized right next to her during one of Tsunade's lectures. Whatever the scroll said, it hadn't been good. Tsunade had immediately turned the lecture over to Shizune and stormed out of the room. After her class, Temari had summoned Gamakichi to try to get more information, but even the bribe of a huge bag of candy hadn't gotten him to talk. She supposed that was when she let Ino talk her into having the kunoichi over. With Naruto gone, it sucked to be alone. Temari eventually found Ino sitting in the garden on a bench talking to Sakura. She stopped and wondered if getting Ino to help was worth dealing with Sakura. She'd said she would help the girl, but there really wasn't anything she could do. Her problems all centered around her husband, but the girl just seemed blind to that truth. Thank you Kami for Naruto. He has his problems and he is going to pay for leaving on a month-long mission and just leaving me a note, but I could have been married to that jackass Uchiha. She just decided to make Sakura help clean up when the girl burst into tears. Watching Ino try to console the girl, Temari turned around and went back to the house. On second thought, I think I'll just clean up on my own. Damn you for leaving me to deal with this shit, Naruto. Prone in the snow, Naruto grimly surveyed the black stone fortress in front of him through a pair of binoculars. There was no doubt about it. He could sense several Hiraishin seals within. This was where the client and his team were. His rage simmered below the surface and he could feel the Kyuubi trying to influence him as he reviewed the mission so far. He'd known he was chickening out when after packing his supplies, he'd left a note telling Temari he was on an extended mission. He only stopped briefly on his way out to order Rainer to defend Temari at all costs. In his defense, he really didn't know how to break the news, but he suspected she was going to make him pay for it later anyway. But that thought pleasantly sitting in his head, he wasn't in the best of moods when he and his team arrived to find the actress they were supposed to escort had disappeared. It had taken Naruto and Team Guy most of an hour and several hundred shadow clones to find the woman sitting in a bar, refusing to leave. Having had enough, Naruto simply ordered Neji to knock the woman out and they'd loaded her on the ship bound for the land of snow. After she'd woken up, Naruto and his team discovered, to their horror, that despite being a great actress, the woman was a completely frigid bitch. When she couldn't cry for the camera without fake tears, Naruto had actually looked at her and seen that the woman was bottling all her emotions away, but he didn't know why. After trying to talk to her about it, a complete and utter failure, he'd taken a great deal of amusement in assigning Lee to attend to the woman's needs. It was a sorely needed bright spot for Naruto, Neji and Tenten as they watched Lee drive the woman nuts with his overenthusiasm. That amusement died when the Snow Nin attacked while the crew was filming on an iceberg found on the way to the land of snow. He and the team had managed to drive them off with apparent ease, but the revelation that their client wasn't just an actress, but the exiled princess had not filled him with joy. Naruto knew he should have terminated the contract right there and then, but memories of Wave had convinced him that if he could free a country once, he could do so again. Despite the newly revealed Koyuki Kazuhana's desire to depart, the group pressed on. Now understanding some of the woman's pain, Naruto began trying to break through Koyuki's shell and had made some limited progress before things went to hell. A giant machine riding on metal tracks had nearly crushed Naruto and the princess before he could get her out of the way. He regrouped with his team just in time to watch a small army of loyal snow samurai cut down by some sort of kunai launching machine. Then some sort of airship flew over and a giant claw grabbed the princess out of Naruto's grasp, knocking him over the side of a cliff. It was a completely pissed Naruto that clawed his way back to the top of the cliff 10 minutes later to find the area deserted except for the bodies of the slain samurai. Mentally berating himself for his mistakes, Naruto created some shadow clones to bury the bodies while he began to meditate to track the seals he'd planted on his teammates. Finding the seals active, Naruto wrote out his current situation and his plan of retrieving his team and summoned a messenger toad to deliver it to the Hokage. Unwilling to flash into a potentially bad situation, Naruto began to follow the seal's trail on foot after finishing the burial for the dead samurai. Several days passed before he reached the small ridge he was observing the fortress from. That brought him to his present time and location as he considered his options for freeing his team and the princess from captivity. A small noise behind him caused him to roll and hurl a kunai, but it was casually snatched from the air by the masked man responsible for the noise. Naruto. Kakashi said, handing the kunai back. These things are dangerous, you know. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Kakashi-sensei, why are you here? Considering the amount of time since he reported in comparison to the travel time, Naruto drew the fairly obvious conclusion. Bachan had you following me, didn't she? Laying down next to Naruto to observe the fortress himself, Kakashi decided he might as well come clean. Yes, the Hokage had me shadow you because the mission skirted the edge of Iwa's territory. Kakashi eyed the way the boy tensed. No, she didn't send me because she didn't believe you could do the mission, Naruto. After the Gobi Jinchuriki's attack, she simply didn't want to take a chance. Iwa might try something else to finish the job. His name was Han, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto nearly snarled at the man. Seeing the apology in the scarecrow's eyes, Naruto relaxed. Alright, I can see that, but why didn't you keep my team from being captured? Kakashi sighed. There wasn't enough time for me to intervene. Not effectively, anyway. Those Snow Nin and that armor captured your team almost as soon as you got knocked over that cliff. I went to assist you and when I saw that you were climbing back up, I moved to help them and they were already gone. Naruto chewed on Kakashi's answer for a few minutes as he considered his options. Glancing over at his old sensei, he wondered if the man would help him or just observe. Kakashi-sensei, I'm going in there and getting my team out. Are you going to help me or are you going to just watch me do it? Kakashi gave him an eye smile. I wouldn't want to be lower than trash now, would I? Chuckling at the small joke, the two-leaf shinobi began to plan as the sun set over the field of ice around them. Temari was rather bored. After yet another day of being stuck in a classroom learning human anatomy, all she really wanted to do was go home, soak in the onsen, and go to bed. Sadly, with Naruto out of the village, she was stuck in the council room representing the Namikaze clan in yet another completely mind-numbing council session. It might have been different if anything important came up, but today's session was just a listing of civilian complaints and concerns so far. Each clan on the council represented a certain district within the village, but with the Uchiha and Namikaze clans, both only having recently taken their seats, they hadn't been assigned a district yet. She'd actually felt a moment of commiseration meeting the eyes of an extremely bored Sasuke from across the table, but both teens quickly looked away once they realized it. As Joza sat himself after finishing his duty to his district, Temari tensed as she prepared to flee the room as soon as the Hokage dismissed the council. Seeing the woman watching her carefully, Temari began to get the feeling that something was wrong. Tsunade mentally cursed when she noticed Temari cautiously watching her. She wished she could have told the girl the news privately. She had wanted to wait for more information, but time had run out. She shifted the papers on her desk and called the room to order. There are two related pieces of business for the council today. First, I have received word from Naruto that his mission to the Land of Snow is no longer a C rank. He believes it is now A to possibly S rank. Tsunade watched Temari flinch from the news and her heart went out to the younger Kunoichi. Excuse me, Hokage-sama. Shikaku Nara spoke from his place at the table. What reasons did Naruto give for the sudden change in rank? Tsunade briefed the council on what she knew, starting from the real identity of the client and finishing with the suspected capture of Team Guy. There was a low buzz in the room as several members of the council began to quietly converse. All of it ceased when Temari spoke from where she had her head in her hands. So, his mission is shot to hell. His team is captured and he is on his own. Tell me, Hokage-sama, she said, lifting her face to meet Tsunade's eyes. What exactly is my husband planning to do? Very aware of the attention on her, Tsunade nervously tapped her nails as she opened the scroll Naruto sent. I suspect he was rather angry when he wrote this. She said, apparently he plans on tracking his team with the seals he placed on them and rescuing them and the client. He says that if it comes down to it, he'll let Snow meet Kyuubi. The council room was completely silent, so the sound of Temari's nails gouging lines through the tabletop was heard by everyone in the room. Even Tsunade flinched when Temari spoke with an icy calm. Hokage-sama, you said you had two related items. We've heard about my husband's actions, what was the second item? Tsunade shook her head. She suspected that Temari's control over her temper wasn't going to last through this next item. Still, it was a council issue and needed to be brought up. She suspected she was going to need a lot of sake later. Picking up another scroll, Tsunade cleared her throat. We have received word from Iwagakure regarding the attack by the Gobi Jinchuriki. They state that they deeply regret that one of their Nukenin would attack a Konohagakure shinobi. The scroll also states that they have an offer in the interest of fostering better relations between our villages. Tsunade glanced up from the scroll to see everyone watching her and began to get nervous when she saw Temari mentally putting the pieces together. Smart girl, I suspect she knows what's coming next but is waiting for confirmation. They cite the Uzumaki clan practice of polygamy and offer Kuritsuchi, granddaughter of the Sandaime Tsuchikage, as a bride for Naruto. The information they sent on her indicates that she is the holder of the lava release bloodline and is a level Kunoichi. Excuse me, Hokage-sama. Inoichi interrupted. What Uzumaki clan practice are they speaking of? Tsunade sighed and lowered the scroll. In Uzushi Agakure, the Uzumaki clan practiced a special form of polygamy. A man could have 3 wives, but only if the previous wives agreed, because the new wife would marry not only the man, but also the previous wives. It worked well for the Uzumaki until the destruction of Uzushi Agakure because of the Uzumaki clan's great love of family. Temari did not miss the speculative glances many members of the council sent her way. She knew that the new information would cause many to consider ways they might gain access to her new clan's wealth and status, and she decided to end those plans before they could truly begin. I do not agree with this proposal, Hokage-sama. She said as calmly as possible. From your description, the wife has to agree, and I will not. Exchanging glances with Hamura and Danzo, Kaharu spoke from her place at the elders' table. Forgive me, Temari-san, you may have the right to refuse, but why would you not welcome a powerful bloodline to Konohagakure? Taking a brief calming breath, Temari replied. I'm concerned that none of you seem to be suspicious of this. Eyeing the council warily, she pressed on. Iwagakure loathes the very name Namikaze, and now, in a gesture of friendship and goodwill, they offer the Tsuchikage's granddaughter to the son of the man that almost single-handedly cost them the Third Shinobi War. I don't think so. Much the same could be said about you. Hiashi Hyuga said when Temari paused. You yourself were sent as a show of faith. Why should this be different? The circumstances are completely different, Hyuga-san. Temari retorted. My marriage was to cement an alliance between Sunagakure and Konoha. An alliance mostly focused against the threat of Iwagakure. Temari absently stroked her stomach as she continued. Even carrying an Uzumaki Namikaze heir like I am, if I were to assassinate my husband and flee to Sunagakure, I would not be welcome. There is a very high probability that my own brother would kill me and send my head back as an apology. Temari shuddered at the thought of dying in Gaara's sand. Can you say the same for Kuretsuchi? Silence settled over the council room as the experienced shinobi began considering Temari's words. Her argument was solid and well thought out for being such a quick response. They showed that her actions were not those of a jealous girl, but of a wife protecting her husband. Uncharacteristically, it was Shibi Aburam that broke the silence. It is a pity. Temari-san's arguments are quite logical, but she missed several things that also make this offer untenable. Naruto is not the only target possible in the Namikaze manner, Temari-san herself is quite likely. Her assassination would create disruptions in, if not complete dissolution, of the alliance with Sunagakure. There are several other logical ways Iwagakure could use this against Konohagakure. If the Namikaze clan is not agreeable, then perhaps the Uchiha clan may perform this service for the village. Sasuke spoke with a small smirk at Temari. The opportunity to gain a powerful bloodline shouldn't be given up so easily. If we were to send a response stating that well regretfully the Namikaze clan is unavailable, but that the Uchiha clan was, I have no doubt they would accept. Excuse me Uchiha-san, Choza stated. You are already married, and your clan has no tradition of polygamy. I believe that would disqualify you from consideration. Sasuke gave the council a razor-sharp smile and turned to face his wife. Sakura Uchiha, I Sasuke Uchiha, head of clan Uchiha, hereby declare you unfit to be Uchiha. Your inability to continue the Uchiha line makes you unsuitable and I cast you out. Leaning in closer to the trembling girl, he sneered as he whispered in her ear. You were always and will always be worthless, and now, everyone will know it. Sasuke-kun. Why? Sakura managed to stutter before she ran from the room in tears. Quickly whispering to her father, Ino rose and chased after the sobbing girl. Temari glared at Sasuke from across the room. She wasn't fond of Sakura, but no one deserved what the Uchiha just did. Sasuke seemingly ignored the looks he was getting as he settled back into his seat. Looking up, he spoke. It seems that I am no longer married, Akimichi-san. I trust that takes care of your concern. What gives you the right to do that to Sakura? Kiba shouted from his seat behind his mother. He hadn't ever really liked the girl, but he was in Inuzuka and he simply couldn't believe someone would do something like that to a member of their own pack. Quiet, mutt. Sasuke snapped back. I am well within my rights as head of my clan to do so. Her current inability to bear heirs under Uchiha clan law requires her removal for a more suitable replacement. Temari butted in. If she is unable to bear heirs and your clan law requires she be able to, why would you marry her in the first place? Everyone in the room knew why he had to take the Uchiha council position, but Temari wondered what sort of excuse he would come up with. I was unaware when I married her and was only recently informed that Hokage Ayasama placed a seal on my former wife that prevents conception. Sasuke glared at Temari's stomach. Konoha needs more Uchiha now, not whenever Hokage Ayasama feels the time is right. Tsunade interjected. Uchiha, I informed you that the seal would remain in place until Sakura was physically capable of carrying a child to term. It's a medical fact that any pregnancy she had would have complications, not simply a matter of the time is right. And yet, you never told me about the seal, did you Hokage Ayasama? Sasuke sneered back. Danzo raised his hands to cut off outbursts from several people in the room including Tsunade. It is done. There is no point in continuing this. Now, Uchiha-san suggested we send an agreement for the Uchiha clan to enter this marriage instead of the Namikaze clan. I suggest we focus on that. Tsunade mentally cursed when the slippery old man took control of the room. Her only real response was to get ahead of him and direct the course herself. Very well, Danzo. I assume you are seconding the motion. At his nod of agreement, Tsunade began the council vote. Namikaze. Namikaze voted no, Hokage Ayasama. Sarutobi. Seeing the spot empty, Tsunade remembered that Asuma was out on a mission. Sarutobi abstains via absence. Yamanaka. Continuing down the line, Tsunade felt her heart sink when she realized with only the Inuzuka Ino Shikacho trio and Temari voting against it, the measure would pass. So be it. The council has decided to accept the Uchiha proposal. A message will be drafted for Iwagakure with the terms. If there is no other business, the council is dismissed. Tsunade stood and exited the room. She was going to need sake. Temari waited for the rest to file out of the room and stood with a groan. Council meetings sucked in general, even without events like today, but pregnant it was even worse. She had aches in odd places, and now all she really wanted to do was go home and relax, maybe soak in the onsen for a while. As she exited the room, she was ambushed by Ino, and she knew she could kiss a relaxing goodbye. "What flower girl do you want, flower girl?" She asked a bit more harshly than she really intended. "You gotta help me, Temari." Ino blurted out. "I can't find Sakura and I'm really worried about what she might do." Temari sighed and dragged her hand across her face. "Yes, so much for relaxing." "Alright," she said grudgingly. "I suppose we shouldn't leave her alone, but where did you lose her at?" Ino shuffled her feet nervously. "I never actually caught up to her after she left the council chamber. I've looked around but no one has seen her." "Fantastic." Temari hissed through clenched teeth. Catching sight of Hinata standing with her father as the man conversed with Tsume and Yazuka, Temari grabbed Ino's hand and pulled her along. "Hinata, we need your help." "Me?" the confused girl asked. Shooting a glance at her father, she straightened her shoulders. "How may I assist you, Temari-san, Ino-san?" "Flower girl can't find Sakura. We need you to help us find her." Hinata shot her father another nervous glance but relaxed some when he signaled her with his fingers. Bound to the girls in front of her, Hinata smiled. The Hyuga clan would be honored to assist the Namikas and Yamanaka clans in this endeavor. "Shall we depart?" Temari stopped Hinata when the trio exited the building. "Hinata, what was that?" Hinata tapped her fingers together as she responded. "Father has told me that I need to act in a manner befitting the Hyuga heir." Ino cut in. "Oh, that's okay, we just thought you might have been pulling a Niji on us." Hinata blushed and had a small smile. "Yes, Niji Niasen can be a bit formal. I was trying to act like him." Temari and Ino both rolled their eyes, causing Hinata's blush to deepen. "Alright," Temari said. "Now that's out of the way, let's go find Pinky so I can go home." Ino sneered at her friend as they set off. "Pregnancy making you a bit testy, fangirl?" Resisting the urge to wipe the smirk off Ino's face, Temari raised her head haughtily. "You'll go through this sort of thing as well, you know. When you do, don't come whining to me." The cheerful banter died when Hinata led the trio into a park and they found Sakura passed out on a bench surrounded by sake bottles. Towing one of the bottles, Temari's mouth twisted with distaste. "Well, I suppose it could be worse, but what do we do with her?" Ino sighed and grabbed her unconscious friend under her arms. "Alright girls, grab on. Let's carry her back to her parents' house." The girls were lost in their own thoughts as they carried Sakura, but they weren't expecting the reaction they got after Ino knocked on Haruno's door. "Hi, Haruno-san." Ino said as Sakura's mother cracked the door open. "We found Sakura in the park and after what happened this afternoon, we thought we'd bring her here." "Ino-san, Hyuga-san, Namikaze-san," she said, sneering at the last name. "I don't have a daughter named Sakura. I had one, but she was cast out of the Uchiha clan, and so she is dead to us." Having said her piece, she slammed the door closed in the girl's face. "I was afraid of this." Ino sighed. "Ever since we were little, Sakura's parents wanted her to marry into a shinobi clan. I guess they figured that having a clan for in-laws would boost their business. And now that Uchiha theme kicked her out, Temari finished for her. They don't want anything to do with her. Fucking civilians." Ino and Hinata stared at Temari. It was rare for the woman to swear, but they were both in agreement with her. "So, what are we going to do?" Ino asked the others. "Dad says she can't stay with us. I asked him before I went after her in the council chamber. He said that the political situation wouldn't allow it." Hinata was next to speak. "She can't come with me. My father would never allow it." "Damn it." Temari cursed. "I suppose she can come with me. I think we all know that Naruto won't give a damn about any political consequences to providing refuge for a banished Uchiha. Especially this one." Ino's eyes widened. "Are you sure about that, Temari?" "Yes." Temari sighed. "My husband would never forgive me if I just left her, but you," she said pointing at Ino, "are coming with and staying with her until she wakes up. I'm in no mood to deal with her when that happens." Ino nodded as she ran a concerned gaze over her friend. "Temari's right, this is going to be unpleasant when she wakes up." Smoothing Sakura's hair as the trio dragged her towards the Namikaze compound, Ino worried. "You better not try anything stupid, forehead. You're gonna get through this." Naruto crouched waiting for the sentry to draw closer. As the man passed him, he slapped his hand over the sentry's mouth and drove a kunai through the back of his neck. Dragging the body into the small room he'd been waiting in, Naruto stripped off the sentry's mask and examined his face. Using his personal henge, Naruto transformed himself into an exact duplicate of the deceased sentry. Checking to ensure no one had noticed the brief scuffle, Naruto stepped back into the hall and began following the man's rounds. Unsure of exactly where Team Guy and Koyuki were being held, the best plan Naruto and Kakashi had been able to devise was a simple infiltration. When either shinobi located the targets, they were to free the prisoners and radio the other for backup. Kakashi had expressed some concern at separating, but had quieted when Naruto reminded him of his ability to hide from even Anbu if he needed to. He then made a small joke about Snow not having Iruka-sensei to track him down, and the two had shared a much-needed laugh. As he patrolled through the halls, Naruto made sure to dispose of the single snow nin he encountered. It was risky, but he figured that once he freed the team, the fewer enemies they had to deal with on the way out, the better. The only real problem he was having was with Kyuubi. The fox seemed to delight in Naruto killing, and he made a mental note to discuss that with Jiraiya the next time he saw his godfather. Raised voices from nearby got his attention, and he grinned when he recognized the sound of Lee's voice echoing through the hall. It seemed that the guard had gotten annoyed with Lee giving Koyuki one of his youth speeches inherited from Guy, and when Naruto poked his head around the corner, the guard was fully occupied. Neji and Tenten sat near the back of the cell with looks that seemed to combine amusement and annoyance as the guard yelled at Lee to shut up. Of course, this just encouraged Lee to further increase the volume and vigor of his speech, and Naruto's smile mirrored Neji and Tenten's. Carefully searching for cameras or other guards, Naruto's smile turned vicious when he didn't find any. Casually walking around the corner, his hand on the handle of his Kodachi, Naruto calmly approached the guard yelling at Lee. Seeing another guard approach caused Lee to quiet as the three captive Leaf Nin examined the new arrival. The guard previously occupied with Lee turned to greet his fellow Snow Nin and died when Naruto whipped his Kodachi through the man's throat. Wiping the blade down, Naruto keyed the mic for his tactical radio. Scarecrow, Fox. Team Guy located and hostile eliminated. Beginning extraction. Fox, Scarecrow copies. Clearing road. Grinning at Team Guy, Naruto dropped his hinge and searched the dead guard for keys. Naruto, we thought you were dead. Tenten exclaimed. Ah, I won't die till after I become Hokage Aya, Tenten. Naruto retorted as he opened their cell. Lee stood, somehow projecting fire from his eyes. Yosh. Your fires of youth burn brightly, my eternal rival. It is good to see you, Naruto. Wincing and sharing a commiserating look with the saner members of Team Guy, Naruto moved across the hall and opened Koyuki's cell. Koyuki stared at him as he undid her restraints. Why? Why would you come for me? Undoing the last shackle, Naruto smiled and extended his hand to help her to her feet. Because you needed someone to. Come on, princess, let's get your kingdom back. Koyuki stared at his hand. She wanted with all her heart to believe, but she didn't know if she could. She began to sink into her memories, the death of her father, exile from her home. The pain and lonesomeness she hid behind her work as an actress, the death of Sandayu and his loyal samurai. She felt herself drowning and instinctively reached for the light in the dark. She took Naruto's hand. Unaware of Koyuki's thoughts, Naruto pulled her behind him to where Team Guy was reclaiming their equipment. Alright guys. He said, drawing their attention. Kakashi-sensei is going to create a distraction and we are going to get the princess out of here. Why is Kakashi here? Neji asked. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Bach-an was worried about Iwa making a move since we were near their borders, so she sent him to keep an eye on me. So, how are we doing this? Tenten asked as she checked over her gear. Naruto unsealed a large stack of explosive tags and tossed them to her. I don't think Koyuki Haim here needs this fortress, Tenten, so while we escape, I want you to plant those wherever they'll do the most damage. Tenten stared at the explosive tags in her hands with stars in her eyes. Say, Naruto, she said sweetly. Where did you get all of these? Oh, he was cut off when Neji slapped a hand over his mouth. Naruto, Neji hissed into his ear. Well, I find it to be a great asset that you can create your own explosive tags, Tenten can't know. Lee whispered in his other ear. Yosh, Tenten's flames of youth burn very bright when she has explosive tags. Neji rolled his eyes. What he means to say is that Tenten goes somewhat insane with the tags. The last time Guy-sensei let her use them, she destroyed an entire training field. Naruto glared at the two and moved Neji's hand from his mouth. That would have been great to know before I gave her an entire stack of my own tags. He hissed back at them. Oh? Tenten said from behind Naruto. Your own tags, huh? What do they do? All three boys paled. Of course she listened in on the conversation. Naruto chuckled nervously. Well, I sort of modified the level 5 demolition tags to have a bit more kick. Lee and Neji involuntarily backed up several steps and stared at him. Naruto, Neji said in a subdued tone. Aren't level 5 tags designed to breach fortress walls in siege warfare? Trying to ignore the truly disturbing grin Tenten was using as she stared at the tags in her hands, Naruto answered. Yeah, but the design is really sloppy. I just sort of tightened it up and increased the yield. Niji stared at the madman in front of him. He'd increased the power of a level 5 explosive tag and then given Tenten an entire stack of them. Madness, simply madness. Exactly how much did you increase the yield? Niji wasn't entirely sure he wanted to know, and Lee looked like he didn't really want to know either, but he simply had to ask. Naruto tilted his head back as he thought. Maybe 3 times. Can't be more than 5 though, I'm sure of that. Niji felt ill. A small tremor followed by the sound of an explosion brought the team back to the matter at hand. "Alright team," Naruto said. "That had to be Kakashi-sensei, so let's get moving. Lee, take point. Tenten and I will stay next to the princess. Niji, take the rear and keep an eye out. Kakashi-sensei told me that some of these guys are wearing some sort of armor like the guys that ambushed us in the glacier. Supposedly it will block chakra, so it's a good thing Lee and Tenten don't really use it. Niji, if we do run into anyone with the armor, remember that any point not covered by the armor is a weakness. If you have to, take out their arms and legs and let Tenten or Lee finish them. Everyone clear?" The members of Team Guy dropped into their assigned positions with sharp nods, and even Koyuki managed a brief nod. The team began to go through the fortress corridors without too much trouble. Lee had to drop several sentries, and Tenten wouldn't stop giggling as she placed explosive tags on several load-bearing structures they passed by. Their streak of luck ended when they entered a large barracks room the same time 2 snow nin in chakra armor entered the other side. The 2 parties eyed each other briefly before sinister smirks appeared on the snow nins' faces. Well, the pink-haired woman said to her companion. "It seems like the children have come to play Mizur." Mizur smashed his fist into the palm of what appeared to be a metal arm. "Right you are, Fubuki, right you are. Hopefully they provide more entertainment this time." Naruto sized them up and passed orders quickly. "Tenten, Lee, take the woman. Niji, guard Koyuki Haim. If you see an opening, take it, but your priority is to keep her safe." Sliding forward towards Mizur, he drew his Kodachi. "Careful, these guys are wearing that armor we were talking about." Naruto quickly lost track of anything but his own battle. His opponent was fast and strong, boosted by the chakra armor no doubt, but still dangerous. Several minutes of furious blow and counter blow resulted in Naruto and Mizur locked in a stalemate. Naruto was marginally faster, but Mizur was considerably stronger, especially boosted by the chakra armor. Several times Naruto was almost killed by odd attacks from the man's metal arm. All Naruto had to show for his effort was several scratches across the center of Mizur's armor. Parrying yet another strike from the man's metallic arm, Naruto was forced to duck and roll forward to avoid the cables it launched. He cursed when released that even with Iro Sennin's training, he didn't quite have the speed he needed to overcome his physical limitations. Stupid freaking short arms. Fine, if he couldn't win in a straight-up fight, it was time to draw from his bag of tricks. Waiting for the man to launch his arm at him again, Naruto finally got his chance. As the arm arced in towards him, Naruto dodged forward and pretended to trip. Rolling forwards towards the man, Naruto released his hold on his Kodachi and allowed Mizur to grab him with his normal hand. That was a mistake. Naruto coldly told Mizur as he formed in both hands and swept them forward into the man's arm. The 2 ground through Mizur's arm, and when they collided, the side effect wasn't what Naruto was expecting. He'd expected an explosion and had angled his palms to try to deflect most of it away from his body. What he got was a small explosion and a condensed beam of chakra that ripped up through Mizur's shoulder and cut through the walls. Holy hell, he thought. That looked an awful lot like a. Mizur dropped towards Naruto, his body in shock after losing his arm. As he fell, the last thing he saw was Naruto drawing a strange 3-pronged kunai and driving it towards his throat. Naruto kicked Mizur's body off and pulled his kunai from its resting place in Mizur's throat. Wiping the blade off on the dead man's tunic, Naruto took time to check his surroundings. Niji and Koyuki were still safe. Several bodies near Niji showed that he had been busy. Tenten and Lee were still fighting the pink-haired woman. She was using her armor to fly around and keep Lee out of range while deflecting the weapons Tenten was hurling at her. Watching Tenten unseal a small battle axe and throw it, Naruto was struck with a sudden thought. Exactly how many freaking pointy things does she even have in those scrolls of hers? Deciding to get the answer to that later, Naruto moved to reclaim his Kodachi and considered ways to deal with this last pest. She wasn't paying attention to him, but her flight path was too erratic for him to hit with thrown weapons. He'd use kunai cage bunshin, but her chakra armor would absorb or deflect all the clone weapons, same with his small ninjutsu library. Searching the room for inspiration, Naruto's eyes fell on the corpse of Mizur. I wonder if I can overload that armor. It has to have a limit to what it can stop, right? Forming the largest he could in both hands, Naruto carefully studied Fubuki's movements. There, she always dips left after she dodges up. I've got you now. Preparing to slam him together, Naruto belatedly realized he needed to warn his team. Lee, Tenten, get down. Now. Rasengan beam. Once again, the collision created a beam of chakra, but this time the beam was almost as thick as Naruto's waist. He could only stare in awe when the beam ripped straight through Fubuki and her armor before smashing through the wall. Naruto dropped to one knee panting. It took a hell of a lot more chakra to do that than a regular, but he could already see some uses for it. Scarecrow, Fox. He said, keying his mic after catching his breath. 2 chakra armored hostiles down, you pick up the third. A brief crackle of static and Kakashi responded. Fox, Scarecrow. Affirmative, third armor terminated. Gave me a bit of trouble. You? Naruto gave his team a weary smile. Bit of trouble, nothing we couldn't handle. Continue with the plan. Affirmative, rendezvous at start point. Scarecrow clear. Accepting a hand from Neji, Naruto pulled himself to his feet. Good news guys, Kakashi-sensei got that third guy with the armor, so hopefully we won't have too much trouble the rest of the way out. Naruto extended his hand to Koyuki with a warm smile. Come on princess, let's get you out of here. Same positions guys. Let's go. The corridors were empty as the team passed through and Naruto felt increasingly uneasy. He just knew he shouldn't have said that getting out would be easy and he suspected he probably cursed himself to another fight. The only member of the group that seemed immune to the tension was Tenten, but it was hard to tell since she was still constantly giggling as she slapped explosive tags onto things. So, Naruto. Neji called from his rearguard position. How long have you been able to create giant beams of chakra? Naruto cursed under his breath when he felt even Tenten's attention swing towards him for his answer. Just now, actually. He said with a nervous chuckle. When I was fighting the guy with the metal arm I accidentally slammed 2 together and a kinda shot chakra out. Gosh, your flames of youth burn bright indeed. Lee called back, putting his 2 Ryo in. Neji rolled his eyes. One does not simply accidentally create an A-class attack, then turn around and use it a second time immediately after. Madness. Further conversation ended when Neji called out a warning and Naruto grabbed Koyuki to pull her out of the way of a vicious ice, shaped like a black dragon, that tore through where she had been walking. Naruto and his team formed a diamond formation around Koyuki facing towards where they originated. They tensed when a tall man wearing a black chakra armor version calmly strode out of the shadows. Koyuki tensed when she saw him and grabbed Naruto's hand. It's my uncle. She whispered to Naruto. He killed my father and tried to kill me. Naruto smiled at her and gently pried her hands off of his. Sorry Koyuki-hime, I need my hands to fight. Don't worry, I promise he won't touch you. Ah, how touching. The little leaf shinobi promises to save the princess. Dodo called out. It's too bad that you'll have to break your promise. This new prototype chakra armor is much stronger than that worn by those fools you defeated. Soon I will have the treasure my brother hid and with it, I will create an army using chakra armor and we will crush the Gokage villages and I will rule this world. Tuning out the monologue, Naruto signaled his team their orders. With Dodo using chakra armor, Neji was severely limited but he could take her and rendezvous with Kakashi just fine. Lee and Tenten he ordered to attack. As the man finally reached the end of his rule the world spiel, Neji slipped away using the remaining 3's attacks as a distraction. Naruto quickly realized that they were severely outclassed. He figured that Dodo was probably at least as strong as a normal without the armor. That would be bad enough, but doable with 3 talented nin like Lee, Tenten and himself. Enhanced by his armor, Dodo was probably pushing the S-class which was bad news. Gritting his teeth, Naruto realized he was going to have to use Kyuubi's power for this fight. Signaling Lee and Tenten to regroup, he hastily explained. Guys, we can't beat him like this. I'm going to have to use Kyuubi. Glancing at Dodo, Naruto was struck by the man's arrogance. He was just standing there with a mocking smile as the teens hurriedly conversed. He was apparently going to just let them come up with a plan to attack him. Looking back at his friends, he saw the concern etched on their faces. Go on guys, he said, giving them a foxy grin. I'll be fine, I promise. Lee placed a hand on Tenten's shoulder. Come Tenten, we know that Naruto always keeps his promises. We must leave him to his fight. Tenten blinked apparently Lee was learning to copy Guy's ability to become completely serious if the situation required it. Useful but frustrating since she knew he would be ranting about youth in no time. Stepping forward she gave Naruto a brief hug. You better be alright. I still need you to teach me how to make explosive tags. Naruto watched his friends leave and turned back to Dodo. Dropping back into a battle stance, he drew his Kodachi and began working to unlock some of Kyuubi's power. So, they left you behind. How foolish, Dodo mocked, secure in his victory. Don't worry little boy, they'll be following you shortly along with my niece. Naruto once again blessed the arrogance of the man. The armor might boost his abilities to be comparable to S-class shinobi, but he sure didn't have the mince it. Any true S-class would have instantly assumed anyone left behind as a re-arguard would have some sort of trump card and prepared for it. It was obvious from the man's face and stance that he didn't view Naruto as a threat at all. Naruto aimed to correct that. Drawing on the Kyuubi's power, Naruto felt his teeth lengthen as his nails formed claws. Channeling only enough for the initial transformation, Naruto didn't have any tails waving behind him, but Dodo's laughter paused when he saw Naruto's blood-red eyes. Dodo realized he may have made a mistake when he felt the power emanating from the black and orange-clad boy in front of him. Something about the boy seemed familiar, and he suddenly remembered a passage from the most recent Iwa Bingo book regarding Kyuubi Jinchuriki. His eyes widened in shock, causing him to barely dodge a slash from Naruto's Kodachi. If this truly was the Kyuubi, and he believed it was, he was in serious trouble. Naruto drew a grim satisfaction at the dawning panic in Dog's eyes, and he continued to press hard against the man's defenses. "What was that?" he growled. "I thought you were going to kill me." His momentary inattention cost him, and Dodo caught him with a solid punch that slammed him against a nearby wall. Regaining his footing, he saw Dodo forming seals, and two black dragons made of ice roared towards him as Dodo finished his. Channeling Kyuubi's chakra through his Kodachi, causing it to glow an ominous red, Naruto slashed through the incoming and rammed his Kodachi through Dodo's shoulder, pinning him to the wall. "Your ambitions end here," he snarled, forming a Kyuubi enhanced with his free hand. "All the pain, all the suffering you've caused, I'll make you feel it tenfold." Naruto drove his against the center of Dodo's chakra armor, slowly grinding it through his chest. Realizing that he was being influenced by Kyuubi, Naruto stepped back and allowed him to dissipate. Allowing Kyuubi's power to fade away, Naruto nearly dropped from the built-up fatigue. Drawing his Kodachi out of Dog's shoulder, Naruto swiftly beheaded the man, then cleaned and sheathed his blade. Leaning against the wall, he slowly slid down until he was sitting on the floor and keyed his radio. "Scarecrow, Fox. Come get me, sensei." "Copy Fox, we're coming." Without the Kyuubi's power, he was beginning to feel the ache from some of Dodo's blows. He grimaced as he gently touched his ribs, probably broke a couple. "Great, more hospital time." Naruto smiled when he saw Team Guy along with Koyuki and Kakashi. Friends were good. Dozing off as they carefully cared for him, Naruto only woke when Tenten poked him and told him to detonate the explosive tags. She hadn't done all the work in setting them to miss out on the explosion. Deciding to do it so she would leave him alone and he could go back to sleep, Naruto detonated the activated tags in the fortress. Kakashi, Koyuki and Team Guy all stared as the fortress seemed to lift in the air in a flash of flame, then slam back to earth. Ducking under cover with the snoozing Naruto, they waited for the debris to stop flying and poke their heads up cautiously. Several chunks remained, but it was one of the most tough destruction jobs Kakashi had ever seen, and he sweat dropped when Tenten told him Naruto had plenty more of those tags with a giggle. Lifting Naruto and heading towards the nearest town, Kakashi wondered if he should warn the Hokage that Naruto could apparently destroy most of the village without much effort. Nah, he thought, flipping open his favorite book. Too much work. 2 weeks later, Naruto led Team Guy to the gates of Konoha as the sun began to set. "Alright guys, meet at the Hokage's office tomorrow at 0900 for a mission debrief. Until then, dismissed." Saluting, Team Guy left and headed for their respective homes. Approaching his own home, Naruto noticed the place seemed to feel a bit different and he began to worry. Opening the door, he saw Temari sitting at the table with a haggard expression. She brightened up when she saw him, but he wondered why she still seemed so worn out. Sitting across from her at the table, he reached out and gently clasped her hands. "Temari-chan, what's wrong?" Temari sighed. "We have a guest. A rather permanent guest as far as I can tell." "Oh?" Naruto replied. "Why is a guest leaving you looking this drained?" "It's Sakura. She was forced from the Uchiha clan and her parents disowned her." Temari began to babble, the emotions of the past weeks catching up to her. "I brought her here cause I knew you would want me to help her, but all she's done is cry for the last 2 weeks and even with Ino, we have to watch her cause she's tried to commit suicide." Stopping to catch her breath, Temari felt herself being pulled into a hug. "SHH, it's alright Temari-chan." Stroking her hair to calm her, Naruto felt bad for Temari. Life never seemed to give her a break. "I'll watch over Sakura-chan so you and Ino can get some sleep, but first, I need you to tell me everything that happened while I was gone." "Thanks for listening."